Chapter 796. I can't take it anymore. I really can't take it anymore. This fuss is too torturous. Deer Cry painfully shook the Deer Cry fruit and muttered. Lioli also patted her chest with a pale face. I can't believe it, I really can't believe it either. Something must have gone wrong. How could this guy's luck be so good in the punishment realm? I don't understand. What's going on? As for Chen Guang, after a brief moment of confusion, he watched as the red light on the Earth chaotic being dimmed at an extremely fast speed. The Earth chaotic being was cut in half at the waist by the suddenly closed exit of the spacetime tunnel. As for himself, he had completely turned into sand but was still standing in the same place. On the surface, there were no visible changes, but the cut on his neck began to rapidly bleed. This meant that at the moment when the Earth chaotic being died, his body quickly broke away from the state of disintegration into dust and recovered to a whole body. The blood that spurted out from the cut on his neck gradually flew into the air, but did not scatter in all directions like water sprayed out from a sprinkler. Instead, under the guidance of the tremor being's superpower, the blood gathered back to his neck. As for the head that was blown away, the particles of dust gathered together in the air and turned into complete pieces of flesh, bones, brain, eyeballs and other body structures. They slowly floated back to his neck and quickly assembled on his neck like building blocks. During the whole process, Chen Guang, who was in the state of spirit, watched from the beginning to the end until his handsome, domineering and unparalleled face reappeared in front of him. Then, his spirit went into a trance, and when he opened his eyes again, he had returned to the sight that his body should have. Wah! Beside him, Lu Fei burst into tears and pounced onto Chen Guang. Chen Guang held her in his arms, and on the other side, Enchanting fell softly on his thighs. Chen Guang breathed rapidly and patted Lu Fei's smooth back. Sister Lu Fei, don't cry, it's okay. Ah! Lu Fei suddenly cried out in shock. She looked up at him blankly and even rubbed her eyes, afraid that she was seeing things. What's going on? Wasn't your head? Chen Guang waved his hand. It's fine. You're just seeing things. Maybe you're hallucinating under the monster's control. She didn't know anything about it anyway, so it wasn't a problem to fool her. After saying that, Chen Guang gently put down the unconscious Enchanting, stood up, and walked to the exit of the tunnel. At this moment, the last bit of red light on the hemispherical Earth chaos had been completely extinguished. Then, the body that was made of unknown materials slowly turned into smoke and disappeared. Other than the semicircular fruit candy that fell to the ground, there was no trace of it left, as if it had never been there. Bending down, Chen Guang picked up the dark red semicircular crystal. He didn't know what to feel. This unlucky guy looked so arrogant, but it just so happened that when it drilled out of the tunnel, the exit of the tunnel was closed. Even the crystal core in its body was cut in half. No wonder it died so thoroughly. I say, brother, you're a little unlucky. This must be the accumulated bad luck of 8 generations of your ancestors. That's why you're so unlucky, right? Lowering his head to look at the fruit candy in his hand, Chen Guang looked at the fruit candy in his hand. The fiery red color was dazzling, and there would occasionally be a radiance flowing within it. It was truly a beautiful sight. You died so tragically. But I can't let you down for your generosity. As an experienced candy lover, Chen Guang didn't think too much about it. He decisively threw the half of the fruit candy into his mouth and chewed it. It was indeed the taste of dragon fruit. It was sweet and tasty, with a little sesame chewiness. Lu Minghua exclaimed, "Aw! Sister Lioli." He ate the ability crystal core of the Earth chaotic being. Lioli didn't pay attention to Lu Minghua. She hadn't recovered from the shock yet. She felt that something was wrong, and things were completely out of her control. She muttered to herself, "This doesn't make sense, really, this doesn't make sense. Didn't the 10 times difficulty realm of punishment want his life? But why did it end up like this?" Lioli thought hard. First, he put his subordinates in danger, forcing him to personally come to the foot of Mount Baral where the earth element was extremely abundant. Then, he was forced to fight to the death with several earth elemental creatures. He either had to die in the hands of one of the earth elemental creatures, or he had to eat the ability crystal core after killing the elemental creature. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to deal with the next earth elemental. When he first absorbed 3 or 4 types of earth elemental superpowers, and then the earth chaotic being appeared, he would be defenseless and fall into a state of certain death. This was the normal realm of punishment, only this could be considered a punishment. Later on, he thought of a way to make use of Nicosia's machinery heart to open a path ahead of time and send Qinguang to the real punishment realm. Although it seemed like he was able to avoid the earth primal chaos, it seemed to be a successful trick. But the earth chaotic being chased directly into the space-time tunnel. Although this was very F***ed up, in a sense, it was in line with the principle of killing in the realm of punishment. As a killer move, there was no reason for the earth chaotic being to be resolved so easily. Later, in the tunnel, Qinguang should have died without a doubt, but he thought of such a wretched method, using the 7 fulcrums and the characteristics of the space-time tunnel to save his life. This seemed to be a coincidence, but with his IQ and character, it seemed to be inevitable. When he finally escaped from the space-time tunnel, the exit of the tunnel should have closed immediately, and he would have successfully avoided danger. But the tunnel did not close, and had to wait for the earth chaotic being to catch up, and even when half of its body was out of the tunnel, then it closed instantly and killed the earth chaotic being. In the whole process, there seemed to be many coincidences, and Qinguang was on the edge of life and death every minute and second, but in the end, he relied on pure luck to avoid danger. "Something's wrong, what's wrong?" Lioli was still frowning. Too many coincidences put together, and it made her feel even more strange. Could it be that, in addition to me and the Bell of Fate, there is a third force controlling his fate? "Sister Lioli. Listen to me. This guy is eating the ability crystal of the earth chaotic being." Dear Cry saw that she was distracted and panicked. A vine grew out of thin air and slapped Lioli's head. Lioli suddenly woke up. "What? What did you say?" Dear Cry said, "Sister Lioli, do you really want me to repeat it for the 3rd time? I will be scolded for being long-winded like this, right?" Lioli thought for a moment, and then suddenly reacted, and hurriedly shouted at the void, "Qinguang. Wait a moment." The emotionally stable Master Guang swallowed his saliva. In order to save time, he chewed the dragon fruit candy, and in a few bites, it went down his stomach. Then, he replied, "What's the matter?" Old Master Guang, who had just escaped from death, spoke with such confidence. "Don't eat the earth chaotic being's crystal, there's only half of it left, who knows what will happen if you eat it. Why didn't you say so earlier? You've already eaten it." "Nonsense. This is inertia, I can't stop at all." "Oh, alright, what kind of attitude is this? I'll give you another forward mantra. Please speak. I wish you peace." Qinguang's face paled. "Don't be like this." "Then what? You've already eaten it, nothing I say will change anything. We'll talk later, if you're still alive." Sigh, just you wait. Just as Qinguang was about to clarify things with Lioli, his body suddenly stiffened. The half of the dragon fruit candy that he had just eaten melted in his stomach, turning into specks of light that fused into his body. The superpower brought about by the earth chaotic being's half-crystal collided violently with the 4 existing abilities in Qinguang's body. Somewhere in Qinguang's body that he couldn't see, a dark red beam of light crazily pounced towards a yellow, green, purple, and black light ball. When the two met, the red beam of light instantly gained the upper hand, swallowing and absorbing the other four colors. The original four colors didn't dare to give in, and gathered together to retaliate wildly. The five powers were divided into two factions that fought endlessly, swallowing each other, wearing each other down, and fusing with each other. An incomparably profound and complicated transformation took place. If Qin Guang had eaten an entire Earth Chaotic Being's crystal, the final result would be that the red color would completely swallow and transform the other four colors into a brighter and more dazzling dark red light ball. However, Qin Guang only ate half a crystal today, so the red light representing the chaotic being's power was not strong enough. Finally, everything slowly came to a stop. The five powers finally fused together. Although the red was still the main color, the other four colors didn't disappear. Instead, they turned into four streams of light that revolved around the huge red light ball like satellites. At this time, Qin Guang still didn't know that even in the entire heavenly realm, he was the first person in history to eat the Earth Chaotic Being's crystal. After all, as the existence at the top of the pyramid of Earth elemental creatures, the Earth Chaotic Being had a natural suppressive force on all other Earth elemental creatures. In the heavenly realm, the Chaotic Being's true strength was also close to that of a god emperor. It had never encountered such a clean death, and even after its death, its crystal would not be easily obtained by others. Although the side wall of the space-time tunnel was gentle to Qin Guang's pile driver, that was only because when the space-time tunnel was maintaining a stable existence, it was restrained by the power of the Holy Grail, turning the space-time turbulence into a harmless state. However, at the moment when the space-time tunnel was closed, the violent space-time turbulence that lost control instantly cut through the space-time turbulence represented an absolute interruption. Its lethality was far beyond that of an ordinary god emperor. This unlucky chaotic being was created by the Holy Grail by skimping on materials, so its strength was far from its actual realm. That was why it died so tragically, leaving only half a crystal behind. The amount of crystal left behind was also very particular. If there was even a tiny bit more left, Qin Guang's previous four abilities would be completely devoured. At most, he would become a super weak version of the Earth Chaotic Being. Because the devouring attribute of the chaotic being was too overbearing, it would naturally suppress all other types of Earth elemental abilities. The other four abilities would definitely unite to protect themselves, and the Earth Chaotic Being's ability would be defeated by the four natives that had already formed in Qin Guang's body. There were many coincidences that led to this strange state. When the five-colored brilliance finally stabilized, although Qin Guang still could not see it, and he did not have the ability to look inside, he was well aware of the situation that was happening in his body. Apart from that, he could also clearly feel that the superpower that he possessed seemed to have reached another realm. It formed an invisible barrier around him, which could actually absorb the power of the Holy Grail that filled the surroundings and firmly restrain it in his body. Although he did not know what exactly happened, he felt that he was very cute. Congratulations, Savior. A new type of Earth elemental life form has been born. Savior Qin Guang, please name it yourself. The voice of the Holy Grail resounded in the sky above Qin Guang in Cloud City at the same time. Both Lioli and Deer Cry were already speechless. Lioli previously felt that today's matter was not simple. Everything was really too coincidental. As one of the 10 great god emperors, she had a long lifespan. When she was extremely bored, she had also fiddled with elemental life forms. However, the elemental life forms represented the spirit of the divine realm. Their birth and annihilation all followed the rules of nature that had existed since ancient times in the divine realm. In particular, the level of the Earth Chaotic Being was close to the level of a god emperor, and its realm was extremely high. Even the Lord God above the God Emperor could not create a new type of elemental life form based on the Earth Chaotic Being. But today, this guy had succeeded by accident. It was so easy and casual. Lioli sensed the rich power of the Holy Grail that lingered in Chen Guang's body from afar. She even gasped and said, "If I'm not mistaken, after this new ability has formed in this guy's body, even if the real world and his real world are disintegrated, he can still restrain a certain degree of the power of the Holy Grail in his body. This means that even if the punishment realm ends this time, this guy can still retain the superpower that he obtained today to a certain extent. And not a disposable item that can be thrown away after use." Dirkrai's expression also became serious. Lioli nodded heavily. "Yes." The two gods raised their heads at the same time and looked at the dome above Cloud City that was filled with green clouds. Their minds were completely at a loss. Was it the Holy Grail that was causing trouble, or was it the Bell of Destiny that was deliberately controlling the coincidence, or were there other forces that were secretly manipulating all of this? This was too much of a coincidence. This sudden and unforeseen event exceeded everyone's understanding, and even Luli was not mentally prepared for it. At this moment, Chen Guang had not realized this. After hearing the electronic voice of the heavenly Holy Grail, he was elated. "Oh, not bad. The old man is indeed the son of destiny. Not only did he not die from the disaster, he can even create a new species." After being elated, he scratched his head again. "Let me name it myself. I'm not very good at naming things." As for how to classify this newly born ability in his body, he was also at a loss. Regeneration, hardening, tearing and cutting, controlling soil, disintegrating soil, devouring soil. What kind of state would it be when these 5 abilities were combined together? He was at a loss. Let's give it a try first. Looking around, this equipment room was a reinforced concrete structure. In a sense, it also matched the characteristics of soil. With a thought, he clenched his 5 fingers again and said in his heart, "Explode." In the next instant, the reinforced concrete walls around the sturdy equipment room turned into powder without a sound. A strong wind blew from the top of the mountain, and the outer walls of the equipment room actually turned into dust just like that. Cough, 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 cough. After a long time, Chen Guang carried Axayan Qin and Lu Fei as they charged forward for a dozen meters with their faces covered in dust. When they looked back, the scattered dust had already drifted further and further away. Lu Fei stared blankly. "What? What's going on? Is there another monster chasing after us?" Chen Guang smiled and patted her shoulder. "Don't worry. I'm just testing my limits. Don't panic." He muttered in his heart. "Just a thought from me, and I explode just like that. It's practically a sauce explosion. What name should I give it? What a headache. Let me think, I can only name it Earth Sauce Explosion." Naming successful. Redeemer Chen Guang has become the first Earth Sauce Explosion in the history of the Endless Divine Realm. Old Master Guang was dumbfounded. In his heart, he roared, F***CK. Are you throwing coins? Are you making a staff? I'm just saying it casually. I'm not really going to call it Earth Sauce Explosion. Please let me think of a more domineering name. I'll be serious this time. I'm sorry, but you only get one chance to name it. Earth Sauce Explosion Chen Guang. Standing on the hill, Chen Guang silently wiped his face. I'm really King Dog. Lu Fei looked at his dejected face and became worried again. What's wrong with you? Nothing. Let's go and save them first. Chen Guang thought about it and decided that business was more important. Earth Sauce Explosion it was. No one would know about this bad name anyway. With a flip of his hair, Chen Guang put Axayan Qin on his back and took the lead. Sister Lu Fei. Let's go. Lu Fei suddenly exclaimed, Chen Guang. Your hair. Ah. Chen Guang held Enchanting small but with his left hand and touched his head with his right hand. Ah, the old man's hair had returned. I forgot to tell you just now. You said that I was hallucinating and thought that your head was gone. When I came back to my senses, your hair had grown back. Lu Fei moved closer and looked at his head. She even pulled his hair. Something must have happened. I wasn't hallucinating. Your head really was gone. Your hair looks really shiny. I can't believe you were bald just now. Chen Guang really didn't know how to explain it to her. Forget it. Don't mind the details. I'm fine now, aren't I? We'll talk later. That's true. Lu Fei nodded. That's not right. What's wrong now? We haven't put on our clothes yet. Going back to nature is the trend now. I think it's pretty good. I'm not used to wearing clothes now. Not good. Alright, I'll think of another way. Chapter 797. 6 or 7 minutes later, the three of them were wrapped in thick leaves and went down the mountain. There was no other way. There was no one on the small hill where the communication base station was located, and there was no suitable target to rob. Although Lu Fei felt a little uncomfortable with the tree leaves scraping against her body, she also knew that this was an extraordinary time, so she had to do extraordinary things. She should not ask for too much if there was no condition. Where are we going now? Lu Fei asked. Chen Guang frowned and looked in the direction of Mount Baral. He could roughly sense the position of the strong faith value thread of the fanatic Xuelin. At this time, Xuelin was still alive and moving towards Mount Baral at a fast speed. She was probably being held hostage. Let's find a car first, then drive straight up the mountain. Lu Fei was a little worried. She did not know what kind of existence Chen Guang's enemy was. After all, there were only two of them at this time. She could not be of much help, and the other person who might be of help, Enchanting, was still unconscious. However, seeing that he was full of confidence and did not take it seriously, Lu Fei did not say anything in the end. On the surface, the Utopia town reflected in the realm of punishment looked almost identical to the Utopia town in the real world. Even the small trees on both sides of the dirt road when going up and down the mountain were the same. However, Chen Guang could see a little more than ordinary people. In his eyes, the entire Utopia town and the sky above Mount Baral were shrouded in a layer of misty brilliance. According to his past experience, this layer of brilliance should be the barrier of the realm in a cup. This was indeed the real realm in a cup. Then, in a strict sense, for this realm of punishment, the Holy Grail had taken out a total of 2 realms in a cup. One was the real world that had merged with the real world, and the other was the real realm of punishment represented by Utopia town reflected in the realm in a cup. Looking at the countless zombie-like clay figurines and terracotta monsters that were gradually gathering under the tree, Wu Miaowan let out a long sigh. She had to run again. She struggled to stand up from the tree branch and with a leap, she landed on the ground from a height of more than 10 meters. She turned around and grabbed a rock to vent her anger. She threw it at the monster that was charging at the front. The palm-sized rock smashed into the head of the tall and muscular monster. With a crack, the monster's head shattered like a clay pot that had been smashed by a hammer, leaving only half of its face. But he was still moving forward as if he didn't feel anything. The yellow mud on his face that had been smashed was rising up, and it quickly restored itself like a cultural relic. In just a few seconds, the guy's head had completely returned to its original appearance. Wu Miaowan, on the other hand, did not feel too frightened. Ever since she started fleeing, she had encountered similar situations countless times. These detestable monsters moved slowly, did not have much strength, and did not have much intelligence. They were simply useless, but they could not be killed. Even if they were crushed, they could quickly recover. There were as many of them as there were hairs on a cow, and they were extremely persistent. They came one after another like a tidal wave. Once they set their sights on her, they would chase after her relentlessly. What was even stranger was that she did not know what kind of tricks they had up their sleeves. No matter where she hid, they could easily find her. Just like this time, they had clearly shaken them off completely, but only half an hour had passed, and they were slowly catching up to her again. Their numbers had even increased. She had only been running for about an hour, but not only did she not manage to shake off a single monster, the number of people following her had even increased from a few hundred at the beginning to more than 10,000. As far as the eye could see, this small slope was densely packed with monsters. They were trampling and crushing each other. They bared their teeth and roared madly as they stepped on one another and pounced on her. Some of the smaller and skinnier monsters were even crushed to the ground. Countless of their own kind stepped on them until they were reduced to a pile of mud. However, these mud-like things were constantly trying to regenerate themselves. Although it was a futile effort, it clearly showed their undying nature. Wu Miaowan clenched the phone in her hand and turned around to run. She looked up at the distant sky and could not help but feel a little hopeless. Although she could always steal a few opportunities to stop and catch her breath, and she could even buy some supplies from the roadside stores to fill her stomach, it was not a solution to keep running like this. After all, she was just a mortal. She could get tired and her body had its limits, but these monsters obviously had no limits. Sigh, no wonder I've been feeling uneasy since yesterday. It must be my strong sixth sense as a woman that's warning me. Sigh, is there really no other way? Although she had asked for Enchanting's help, Wu Miaowan did not really count on her. It was not that she did not believe in Enchanting. Of course, she knew that Enchanting would do her best, but this situation was too strange. It was beyond her knowledge, and Enchanting did not have any experience in dealing with it. She could not even find the way to this place. As for the director that Enchanting mentioned, he was also here. Oh please, the director does have some skills, but this situation is too ridiculous, okay? The director is also human, and he doesn't even have inner force. What's the use of him coming here? Wu Miaowan picked up her phone as she ran. She thought to herself, come to think of it, I don't even know what video my darling sent me. At such a critical moment, she spent so much time and deliberately sent me such a huge video file. She must have her reasons. Maybe it's to teach me how to deal with these monsters. Then, Wu Miaowan clicked on the profound critique of capitalism's backwardness and corruption, after school. What? What did I see? What the hell? Am I blind or what? Something's wrong. There must be something wrong with the way I opened it. Otherwise, I'm hallucinating. I'll do it again. Wu Miaowan did not believe it. She closed the video and opened it again. Alright, I'll give up. That's right, this is really a small piece of the neighboring island country. Darling, you're causing trouble. Are you reminding me not to die a pitiful virgin? I'd rather die a full ghost than a hungry ghost. Screw you. Where am I supposed to find a man at a time like this? The group of monsters below. It's disgusting just thinking about it. Anyway, she was running faster than the monsters behind her, so there was no point in running faster. Wu Miaowan simply ran as she watched Qin Guang's profound Maja teaching video. Oh my, so disgusting. This is too annoying. Why are these people so shameless? Public morals are degenerating day by day, and people's hearts are not what they used to be. She watched the video with relish as she criticized it. It was not her fault for not being serious. She also wanted to treat the group of monsters behind her with a more serious attitude, but it was completely meaningless. After running for another 10 minutes or so, Wu Miaowan leaned against a telephone pole and took a breather. The group of monsters had been completely shaken off for the time being. The small video in her hand was still playing. Wu Miaowan watched it a few more times reluctantly. Sigh, forget it. Although she did not think this phone would be of much use, the battery would run out too quickly. She should just turn it off and not be too extravagant. Ah. Oh. Oh. At this moment, Sister Bo's loud voice came from the phone speaker. Wu Miaowan had goosebumps all over her body. She muttered to herself, "Darling was right. It's really quite regrettable." If she had known this would happen, she would have learned from her darling and been bolder when she had the chance. She would have secretly found a chance to drug the director and then secretly *ck him up. At least she wouldn't have had that kind of regret today. Sigh. After all, although the director was lazy, lecherous, not gentle, and irresponsible, he was still the only man she had ever looked at more than once. Strange, he has so many flaws, but I still only look up to him. Is there something wrong with my brain? Forget it, no matter who it is, God, if you can bestow upon me a Prince Charming who falls from the sky, can save me, and can go with me to save my master, I will devote my life to you. Even if it's 7 days a week, 1 day a day, it doesn't matter. God, bestow upon me a reliable man. Wu Miaowan gritted her teeth and swore to the heavens. Then, she heard Enchanting's ecstatic scream coming from not too far away. Ah! Xiao Miao Miao! Why are you here? Wu Miaowan turned her head abruptly and saw Chen Guang supporting Enchanting as they stood in a corner not too far away. There was also a beautiful woman beside them that she did not recognize. The three of them looked a little comical. They had leaves wrapped around their bodies and only covered the important parts of their bodies. They looked like visitors from the primeval forest. Wu Miaowan rubbed her eyes and ears, afraid that she was hallucinating. Enchanting, who had just woken up, broke free from Chen Guang's grasp and ran over with large strides. She hugged Wu Miaowan's shoulder. "Little Miao Miao, it's great that you're all right." Wu Miaowan looked at Enchanting's waist silently, thinking, this damned girl is not wearing any underwear. What kind of situation is this? I don't care how you came here, but you're still in the mood to play cosplay. And to play so shamelessly. Can you please be more serious? You're crazy. Wait, what was I thinking just now? I prayed to God to bestow upon me a man. Could it be that God really heard my prayers and sent me one? But why is it really the director? I was just thinking about it, I didn't take it seriously. Enchanting started shaking Wu Miaowan's shoulder again. What's wrong with you? Don't get distracted. Come with us. We're going to save them. Wu Miaowan's mind was a mess. She stood up in a daze. Little darling, what's going on? Enchanting imitated Chen Guang's tone. We can't explain it to you in a few words, but it's all right. It's all right now. We're here, and everything's all right now. What do you mean it's all right now? Master has been captured by them. Also, look over there. Do you see that? They're coming. Wu Miaowan turned around and pointed in the direction of the monsters. She gritted her teeth. These unkillable monsters had left a deep impression on her. Chapter 798. Chen Guang and the other two looked in the direction where Wu Miaowan was pointing and saw a dark horde of monsters charging out from the corner at the end of the road. These monsters that looked like humans but were not humans charged forward one after another after emerging from the corner. The presence of 3 more living people made these monsters even more frenzied. They howled and pounced at them. Run! Run with me! These damn things can't be beaten to death. Wu Miaoan acted like a seasoned veteran. She pulled Enchanting along and waved at Chen Guang and Lu Fei before leading the way. The man had come to pray for her. Unfortunately, he was not a prince riding a white horse and wielding a treasured sword. Instead, he was a bald director who had no idea what use he was. Wu Miaoan felt that no matter what, it was better to run first. Unexpectedly, Chen Guang waved his hand and said proudly, "You guys hide at the back first. The next scene is going to be a little more violent. It's not suitable for girls. Stop fooling around." Enchanting pulled him back. Lu Fei did not know what to do. Before Enchanting woke up, the two of them had been talking nonsense as they hurried along. Chen Guang's little demonstration just now almost made Lu Fei boast about his abilities to the skies. Lu Fei was skeptical. However, Chen Guang had indeed turned the walls of the equipment room into dust in an instant, but the equipment in the room did not move at all. Lu Fei had seen too many things today that were beyond common sense. She was starting to believe Chen Guang's words when he said it so confidently. As for Wu Miaoan, her reaction was even more direct. She jumped back and glared at Chen Guang angrily. "Do you think I'm joking with you? I was chased up and down by them earlier. Even if I turned them into mud, these monsters can still grow back. We're no match for them. Run. Don't think that you'll become stronger just because you have hair." However, Chen Guang paid no attention to her and pointed at the ground with his left hand. Iron wall technique. As soon as his voice fell, under the dumbfounded gazes of the others, a wall of mud about 7 to 8 meters tall and dozens of meters wide rose from the ground without warning on the concrete road about 20 to 30 meters in front of the four of them. This time, even Lu Fei, who had seen him demonstrate his prowess once, was dumbfounded. Enchanting and Wu Miaoan were even more shocked, as if they had seen a ghost. Chen Guang turned around, flipped his hair, and laughed arrogantly. "Humph! How dare you look down on me? Do you know how powerful I am now?" That's right, this was another utopia town, a parallel space to the real world. It's time to tell you my real secret. Do you want to know my real identity? As Chen Guang spoke, the earth walls on the ground around the four of them rose up one after another according to his will, completely surrounding the four of them. Not only that, but as soon as the walls were formed, they began to creak and groan. The rough surface of the walls quickly became smooth, and even glowed with a metallic luster under the sunlight. Yes, Chen Guang first used his paragon powers to manipulate the earth to erect the walls, then used his ripper powers to compress and harden them. In 10 seconds or so, he had created a fortress of iron and steel. Don't be fooled by the smug look on his face. Deep down, he was actually quite excited. Even though he didn't understand how the Earth Burner was more powerful than the Chaos Adept, he could tell that the Earth Burner was much more powerful than the Chaos Adept by using his Paragon's ability to raise the Earth Wall with a single thought. The Earth Burner's ability was far superior to the Chaos Adept. In addition, his ability to harden the walls was something the Earth Ripper didn't have. As for the Iron Wall technique, Lan Ju felt that if he didn't come up with a more domineering name before he unleashed it, it would be too weak. The tragedy of the Earth Imploder couldn't be repeated, and he had to find a way to cure it. What is this? Enchanting and Wu Miaoan screamed in unison as they hugged each other. On the other hand, Lu Fei appeared calmer, but her eyes were also brimming with vigor. At the same time, she continued Chen Guang's words and asked, "Who are you? Where is this place?" Chen Guang chuckled. "This is the Earth of the LoveLore universe. Before my soul crossed over to the real Earth, I was the most talented Earth Magus in the LoveLore universe. Here, please call me Grand Magister Right Chin. The reason why Utopia in the real world became like this is because of its special location. It is located at the intersection of two worlds. due to some uncontrollable reasons, the two worlds collided and overlapped. The people of Utopia in the real world were transferred here, and they were attacked by the earth elemental power in this magical world. That's how it ended up. The above was all made up by the king of stories, Chen Guang. There was only one purpose. Since he had already swept these people up, and he had displayed incredible abilities, he had to give them an explanation. At the moment, he wasn't sure if Enchanting and the others' memories would be erased after completing the mission, but it was necessary to do some work in advance to pave the way for the great hoodwinker later on. The three of them were confused. Lu Fei said with some doubt, "Well, I think I heard of a web novel called Doluo Continent. That name sounds familiar." Chen Guang chuckled. "That's just a coincidence. That's not important. What's important is that I didn't think I would be able to come back here. I've only just recovered the memories of my past life. But don't worry, even if I recover the memories of my past life, I'm still the same Chen Guang. Alright, wait a moment, I'll be right back." As soon as Chen Guang finished speaking, he used his paragon powers again. First, his body was no longer controlled by gravity, and he quickly floated up into the sky. He stood on the top of the wall and looked down at the black mass of monsters and humans that had been mutated by the earth element. They were like zombies that were crazily pouncing towards the wall. He stretched out his finger and continued to shout like a charlatan, "Qiankuan. Freeze!" The monsters below that were piling up like a human pyramid were instantly frozen and turned into statues. As the highest-level earth element creature in the history of the endless divine realm, the earth burglar's ability to suppress creatures of the same kind was so strong that it made people's hair stand on end. After dealing with the zombie-like monsters, Chen Guang moved his finger again, and the iron wall under his feet turned into pieces of rubble that slowly drifted away. He stepped on a piece of rock and landed back on the ground. Wu Miaowan and the others were completely stunned. This was practically the power of heaven and earth. "How is it? Everyone, right Chin, didn't let you down, did I?" Wu Miaowan stared blankly at the mutated monsters that used to be extremely terrifying in her eyes, but now turned into statues. She took a deep breath and said, "That's amazing, my great director." Enchanting looked at him with some hidden bitterness. "If you're so amazing, why didn't you show your true abilities earlier?" Lu Fei explained on his behalf, "Miss Axian, please don't be angry. Didn't he just say that he just regained his memory?" Chen Guang quickly revealed the truth and performed a Western-style salute. "Miss Axian, your anger is not without reason. It was I, Right Chin, who implicated your excellency. I hereby apologize to your excellency." Enchanting's eyelids twitched. She couldn't shake the feeling that this guy was too mysterious. They weren't far from Utopia, and the three of them walked back to the town in a few minutes. At this time, the town was also empty. Most of the people in Utopia were like headless flies, wandering around the area. There were also some who had been following Wu Miaowan. Chen Guang randomly picked a good car on the street that didn't have the car key unlocked. He then asked Enchanting to find 3 sets of clothes from a clothing store by the side of the road. Speaking of which, it was a coincidence that the shop that borrowed the clothes here was also the same one that the two of them borrowed clothes from in the other world. The owner of this shop also had a strong relationship with Chen Guang. "Two beautiful ladies, we have to hurry and save our companions now. There's no need to go to a hidden place to change clothes alone. I'm the highly respected Earth Great Magician Right Chen in the Doluo world. I definitely won't have any crooked thoughts about you youngsters." What was a truly domineering acting skill like? It was like what he was now. He had a young face, but he deliberately spoke like an old man. Yet, he could still trick others and make them believe him. "Oh. All right." Lu Fei blushed and sat in the back and began to change her clothes. Enchanting, who was sitting in the front passenger seat, was much more generous. Anyway, this old faker has already seen everything. There's no need to be so particular. The car flew a long distance away. Enchanting suddenly asked without thinking, Mr. Great Magician, right, didn't you know how to fly just now? Chen Guang coughed lightly. Although I can fly, it's still faster to drive, and I can also save some mana. Lu Fei asked again, mana. Chen Guang was really a little drunk. This worldview that he pretended to be was so *king imperfect. He accidentally spilled the beans. Yes, that's right. In the Dolua world, we're talking about mana, not whatever mana is written in the novels in your real world. Everything seemed to take a long time, but it had actually been less than 20 minutes since he brought Enchanting and Lu Fei to this punishment world. He was rambling, but he actually didn't waste any time at all. The car flew all the way. Along the way, they encountered some mutated monsters that tried to intercept them, but they were all defenseless under Master Guang's mystery universe. It's a deal, there's no discount. Enchanting, who was sitting next to him, stared at his movements the whole time. Mr. Great Magician, right, you're pretty good at driving, aren't you? Chen Guang chuckled. Of course, I've only recovered the memories of my previous life. I haven't lost Chen Guang's thoughts. Then are you right, Chen Guang, or Chen Guang now? Lu Fei also fell into the trap and asked the question that she cared about the most. I once learned a saying, look at a mountain as a mountain, look at a water as water. Look at a mountain not as a mountain, look at a water not as water. Look at a mountain as a mountain, look at a water as a water. Beautiful ladies, I am who I am, but in your hearts, I am who you want me to be. There's only one soul, but the thoughts will change according to the different lives. Let me give you an example. In your world, I'm a rich university student who's had a lot of twists and turns in my life. But let me make a hypothesis. Let's say that Chen Guang was abducted and sold when he was 3 years old and grew up in another family. Now, he's a laborer who moves bricks at a construction site. His name was also changed to Deng Xiaobao by the family that adopted him. But can you say that Chen Guang and Deng Xiaobao aren't the same person? The three of them were stunned. Although they felt that this fellow was talking nonsense the whole time, what he said seemed to make a lot of sense. Seeing that he'd scared the three of them into a daze, Chen Guang was about to explode with laughter in his heart. But his joy didn't last long, because a notification from the Heavenly Holy Grail suddenly popped up in his mind. Hostage rescue failed. Current number of people rescued, 1. Current number of survivors, 54. Number of people to be rescued, 53. Mission failure if the hostage death rate exceeds 40%. Remaining mission time, 19 hours, 33 minutes, and 28 seconds. Someone died. Who was so unlucky? Chapter 799. What's wrong with you? Enchanting, who was sitting next to him, saw that his expression suddenly changed and asked. Chen Guang shook his head. It's nothing. He didn't tell them about his mission. Telling them about it wouldn't help him and wouldn't make them feel at ease. It would also ruin his noble image as a Grand Magister, right, Chin? By the way, Director, I have something to report. Wu Miaowan, who was sitting in the back, suddenly raised her hand. She wasn't as close as Enchanting and Chen Guang, especially now that Chen Guang was acting so mysterious. It made her feel restrained, and her speech became very formal. As Chen Guang acknowledged, he purposely used a Western accent from the 90s and dragged his voice, "Beautiful lady, please speak." Enchanting and Lu Fei had goosebumps when they heard it. But then they remembered that he had recovered his previous life's memory. Although they didn't know what level a Grand Magister was, it sounded like a bluff. In fantasy novels, it would at least be at the level of the upper class. In the real world, it would probably be an international master. It was normal for him to speak in a genteel manner, but it was a little uncomfortable. Although the previous Chen Guang gave people headaches from time to time, at least it was relaxing to be with him or chat with him. If he were to act like an old man in the future, it would feel really awkward. Wu Miaowan didn't care about Enchanting and Lu Fei's thoughts. She threw herself behind the driver's seat and said with a serious expression, "Great Magister, right, it's like this. Don't think that the monsters you dealt with were weak and easy to deal with. But in my experience, they weren't just these low-level monsters. When we were separated in different vehicles, there was me, my master, Enchanting's master, and team leader Xuelin. If it was just these low-level monsters, although we couldn't kill them, our master wouldn't have been captured. If I remember correctly, most of the monsters on the bus were much more powerful than these ordinary monsters. There were monsters that could harden their bodies into rocks, and there were also monsters that could completely transform into a puddle of mud. They pounced on people and wrapped them up, making it impossible for them to escape. They were like corsets that restricted our movements. This was how team leader Xuelin was subdued. I've also seen a monster transform into a stone sword, which was held in the hands of another stone man. With a swing of the sword, the bus we were on was directly cut in half. Not only that, but unlike those brainless monsters who only knew how to run after me, those guys on the bus could talk, think, and even cooperate with each other when they launched a surprise attack. They also had some very skilled fighting skills. So, my little sweetheart's master. Wu Miaowan was on the verge of tears as she spoke. Don't be sad. Your master is still alive. Chen Guang comforted. He was not spouting nonsense. Just now, the Holy Grail had clearly informed him of the identity of the dead hostage. It was an unfortunate former Special Affairs Bureau employee. Mr. Wright, how do you know? Wu Miaowan rubbed her eyes. Chen Guang smiled mysteriously. I'm an Earth Grand Magister in the Doluo world, and I can communicate with the elements. The Earth element in Utopia Town is extremely rich, and the Earth has a spirit. Do you understand? Listen carefully. The Earth is whispering to me. Do you hear it? The three girls believed him and listened for a long time. Of course, they didn't find anything. They shook their heads in confusion. Chen Guang put on an enigmatic look again. Sorry, I forgot that you are mortals in the present world. You can't hear the sound of the earth. Chief Archmage, you may be powerful, but you must not let your guard down. Those special monsters were really powerful and well-trained. Apart from that, they had a clear division of labor when they launched their surprise attack. It was obvious that they had planned it beforehand. They weren't like the other monsters who chased us relentlessly just because we smelled a living person's aura. They really are very intelligent. Before they made their move, we were completely fooled. I see. I understand now. Thank you for your reminder. A monster that had human consciousness and had been plotting for a long time. Chen Guang immediately became vigilant. Things were a little different from what he had imagined. At first, when he encountered those mindless zombie-like mutated monsters, he thought that everyone in the punishment realm from the real world had become like them. Although they had strong bodies and the earth element, they had completely lost their consciousness. They acted on instinct like wild beasts. Now, it seemed that wasn't the case. At the very least, the combat power that the official members of the World of Destruction displayed in front of Wu Miaowan was much stronger than those zombie-like mutated monsters. According to Wu Miaowan's description, some of the mutated monsters' combat power was comparable to Tremblers and Rippers. If his deductions were correct, then he could conclude that the official members of the World of Destruction not only retained their own consciousness, but the degree of mutation was also deeper, and the species they formed were also of a higher level. He just didn't know if this was due to the setting of the heavenly Holy Grail, or if there was another reason. Fortunately, he didn't kill the monsters under the wall. What Chen Guang had used was the universal anchor that he had randomly named. He only froze them in place and didn't directly blow them up. Their lives weren't taken away, but their bodies were forcefully frozen by the hardening ability of the universal anchor. When the matter was over, these people would return to their original state. The reason why he was so merciful was because he had a feeling that if he killed these monsters in the punishment realm, these people would be as good as dead. Even if the punishment realm ended, those who died in the punishment realm would undoubtedly die in the real world. If they were all terrorists of the world of destruction, it would be fine if he killed them. However, the civilians were just innocent people who were dragged into this. He couldn't live with his conscience if he killed them recklessly. Combined with Wu Miaowan's information, it further proved that Chen Guang's guess was correct. Although there were definitely spies of the world of destruction in Utopia Town, it was impossible for the entire town to have them. Untrained civilians wouldn't be of much help to the terrorist organization. Instead, it would increase the risk of information being leaked. Therefore, even if the ambush task force's car was filled with members of the world of destruction, it could only be concluded that the organization had more members than they had imagined. Moreover, they were extremely powerful in Utopia Town, so much so that they could control the task force's movements without anyone noticing. They could also secretly replace the normal tourists, tour guides, and drivers who were supposed to be in the same car as the world of destruction. But no matter what, the majority of the residents in this small town were still innocent. However, it was a little strange. There was no reason for the people of the world of destruction to know that they would turn into earth elemental creatures. Weren't they afraid that they would turn from ordinary people into monsters? Weren't they panicking at all? The ambush task force's plan must have been set up before the punishment realm descended. There was no reason for them to carry out the ambush plan so calmly after turning themselves into monsters, right? If that was really the case, their mental fortitude was too terrifying. It didn't make sense at all. Come to think of it, it was indeed a little scary. Hey, I say, what are you afraid of? While he was letting his imagination run wild, Azure suddenly spoke in his mind. Chen Guang didn't hide it from her. Your Majesty, I'm afraid that the enemy is too strong and our army is too weak. I'm afraid that the punishment realm will disappear without a trace. I'm very tired. Speak human language. Madam Azure, don't you think it's strange? The world of destruction is just an assassin organization on Earth. This punishment realm is just a parallel world created by the Holy Grail to teach me a lesson. It's not complete yet. It's only a small area around Utopia Town. It can't even be considered a complete world. Why are the people of the world of destruction so calm after turning into monsters? What fighting techniques? What excellent training. Not only that, they were even able to combine the Earth elemental superpower with the terrorists' military training. Why did I feel like they were the children of fate in the world of punishment, while I was the main antagonist? This doesn't make sense. There's no reason for them to know about the existence of the punishment realm before me. Azure chuckled. Don't forget about your 3 main quests. Why? Your second main mission requires you to destroy the headquarters of the world of destruction within 48 hours. What do you mean by destroy? Is destroying a house considered destroying it? Of course not. It's killing everyone. In other words, your second main mission is to wipe out this clown organization called the World Shatterer, leaving no one alive. Therefore, compared to others, the people of the world of destruction are more involved in your mission. It can even be said that they are second only to you. In fact, they are even more involved than the hostages you need to save. And then, Lioli continued, so, when they were pulled into this punishment realm from the real world, these people became your mission targets. Compared to the people you met in the Sea of Serenity, although their souls are more complete, there's actually not much difference. The world of the Sea of Fleeting, which was constructed out of thin air, has a complete history. People who suddenly appeared from nowhere, such as your Captain Annie, also have their own stories and memories. The people of the world of destruction are the same. They have also been given complete memories by the punishment realm. Now, you can say that you are facing the assassins of the world of destruction, or you can say that you are the natives of the Dolua world. Ha! Dolua world. What does that mean? Chen Guang didn't understand. Wasn't this a name that he made up? Why did Azure use it? I know you're spouting nonsense, but this broken world doesn't have a name to begin with. You named it very casually, and since you're the master of the Holy Grail accepted your name by default, just like your marmalade popper. Ha! God said, "Let there be light." Then there is light in this world. The world in the cup that exists based on your will and needs will be affected by your thoughts and will change. Although you can't completely control the Holy Grail, you are a godlike existence to every world in the cup. What's so strange about that? What's so incomprehensible about that? You have to understand that the truth of the world created by the heavenly Holy Grail is actually a part of your will. Chen Guang sucked in a breath of cold air. If Azure didn't say it, he really didn't know that he was so powerful. Thinking about it carefully, he had experienced so many worlds in the cup in the past. Just like what Azure said, every time, it was what he imagined in his mind, what he needed, and what kind of world the heavenly Holy Grail sent. The world is me. I am the world. My will is the source of the world in the cup. So I am that powerful. There's no time to lose. Hurry up. He immediately used his super strong will to imagine in his mind. Please help me change the Earth-type monsters of the world of destruction into plump and skinny beauties of all shapes and sizes, who don't like to wear clothes, and who are very open and bold. Please think of something useful. This isn't what you really need. The heavenly Holy Grail isn't so childish. Chen Guang sighed and suddenly understood. Sigh, okay. Forget it. Then what about Wu Miaoan and Xan Qin? And Xuelin and the rest shouldn't have been injected with new memories, right? Why do you have so many questions? Didn't you say you were going to help me answer my questions? Isn't this within the scope of my reasonable request? I can't stand you. Don't you think Wu Miaoan's actions are very abnormal? Isn't she too calm? Also, have you ever thought about why she didn't stop your fanatic Xuelin from leading the team in your name even though she already felt a sense of crisis? Also, Xuelin used to be a very outstanding soldier in your world, and the other people in your task force are also very outstanding agents. Why didn't they realize that even the passengers and the driver had been replaced? Is it really the people of the world of destruction who have the same world-class acting skills as you? Isn't this ridiculous? Chen Guang suddenly understood. You mean, other than me, everyone else's thinking has been affected? Yes, it's just a difference of degree. Some people's memories have been tampered with, some have become walking dead, some have become insensitive, and some have their thinking restricted. That's all. This won't cause any side effects to them, right? Azure shook her head. You don't have to worry too much, that won't happen. Let me give you an example. Have you ever held a phone in your hand and looked everywhere for it? That makes you look like a fool. I have. By the same logic, Wu Miaoan and the other members of the task force didn't experience too much interference. Their previous state was no different from searching for their phones, as I said. It's just that a certain part of their thoughts was blocked. Chen Guang nodded. I understand now. The people of the world of destruction are basically the same as my friends or enemies in the sea of future. They have been injected with new memories and a complete worldview. They have become the natives of this world. That's why they were able to use the earth elemental ability perfectly from the beginning, right? Yes. But the enemy is still very strong. They were originally very strong. But what? But kid, can't you have some self-awareness? Do you know how much of a bargain you've picked up? My dear Earth Espresso, Chen Guang. Damn, I thought that no one would notice the 3-word soy sauce popper, but it turned out that someone had already heard it. I can't stand you. In any case, save your strength. Don't use too much force and kill your hostage. As for the rest, good luck. You have to understand that you, a Great Earth flamethrower, have surpassed the Great Earth chaotic ones in terms of level. You might even surpass God Emperors. With that, Liuli went silent. Chen Guang, on the other hand, was filled with disbelief. Lord Sauce explosion was of a higher level than the God Emperor. Why am I so cool? What am I afraid of? If God obstructs us, we'll kill God. If Buddha obstructs us, we'll kill Buddha. Chen Guang had been bitten once, twice shy. The process of entering the punishment realm had been too thrilling and exciting, which made him think that this world would be even more dangerous. Moreover, Wu Miaowan had repeatedly emphasized the strength of their opponents. But now, his confidence had soared to the sky. Chapter 800. He drove all the way up the mountain. With the help of the god of racing, even a small Alto could feel like a Ferrari. At this time, his crotch, no, it should be the brand new BMW 3 Series that was also speeding all the way up the mountain. Even though it was a winding and narrow road up the mountain, it still maintained a speed of about 150 km per hour compared to Axayan Qin and Wu Miaowan, who were frightened and nervous. Lu Fei, who had absolute confidence in Chen Guang's driving skills, showed a sense of superiority. Not only did she not change her expression throughout the whole journey, but she also poked her head out from the back seat and focused on the surroundings, acting as an observer on the tank. You don't have to be so nervous. Chen Guang did not need to look back to know how hard Lu Fei was working as an observer behind him. Lu Fei looked at Axayan Qin and Wu Miaowan, who were pale and shrunk in their seats. She smiled and said, I can't do that. Your 2 deputy directors are a little tired, and we are in the enemy's territory. Of course, we have to be more cautious. I can help as much as I can. Chen Guang actually wanted to tell her that even if they were ambushed, he could detect the earth element from afar, so there was no need for anyone to keep an eye on them. However, seeing that she was interested and full of fighting spirit, he really did not have the heart to discourage her. All right. As the two were chatting, Chen Guang suddenly slowed down a little. From the foot of Mount Baylor, the road leading to the scenic area was basically a 2-lane mountain road. On the left was the mountain, and on the right was a cliff that was getting higher and higher. Every certain distance, there was an arc reserved for large vehicles to drive in the opposite direction. At this time, about 300 meters in front of Chen Guang was an arc reserved. However, at this time, this reserved belt was not empty. A dark yellow boulder about 10 feet in diameter was standing there quietly. The boulder looked a little mottled, and it seemed to be a little old. If it wasn't for the dense earth elemental waves coming from the inside, and the ability of the Marmalade Bomber to sense it clearly, Chen Guang would have been fooled. Unlike the notification that the Holy Grail would give him when he encountered the earth elemental creatures in the real world, after entering the real world, he had already passed all the early stages of the quest. In the realm of punishment, it seemed that he would have to rely on himself. The Holy Grail no longer gave him a clear quest objective. There's something strange about the stone ahead. Unexpectedly, Lu Fei, who was sitting in the back row, was the first to point out the peculiarity. Chen Guang parked the car more than 100 meters in front of the stone and asked, "Ms. Lu Fei, how do you know?" Lu Fei frowned. "We've passed through many of these semicircles just now. Since it's a passage reserved for large vehicles, there's no reason for a stone to be placed here. This is the scenic area of Mount Barao. Normally, there would be many vehicles passing through this road every day." "You're right. This rock was made by a monster." Chen Guang opened the door and said as he got out of the car. He didn't expect Lu Fei to be so observant and quick-witted. Although she didn't have his ability, she could rely on deduction and analysis to find the peculiarity. "Chief Great Magician, wait a minute. Don't get too close." Wu Miaowan, who had finally recovered a little, hurriedly shouted from behind. Chen Guang shook his head and continued to walk forward quickly. He said, "Time is tight, so I won't dawdle. Please don't worry, sir. Right Chin, never fight a battle without preparation." If it wasn't for the fact that he was worried that the car would be smashed by this thing disguised as a giant rock, Chen Guang didn't even plan to stop the car. Wu Miaowan wanted to say something, but Enchanting and Lu Fei stopped her. "He's right. This is his hometown. He should know the abilities of these stone monsters better than we do." Enchanting stared at Chen Guang's back with a pair of beautiful eyes. From the moment the two of them jumped off the helicopter until now, Chen Guang had given her too many shocks and surprises. Her thoughts gradually changed. Perhaps he really wasn't talking nonsense. Perhaps in his world, there really was such an incredible thing as the soul transmigration of past and present lives. Otherwise, how could he explain the existence of this mirror image of utopia? How could he explain the monsters that had chased after everyone all the way but failed in the end? Also, when Chen Guang called out the names of the Earth Trembler and the Earth Ripper, he himself had made up nonsense. But now that he thought about it, perhaps these nouns had been engraved in the depths of his memory since a long time ago. His so-called nonsense was actually because these monsters from his hometown had awakened his lost memories. That's right, that must be it. Therefore, sometimes it was so easy for people to convince themselves. Things that seemed impossible to find an answer were, in fact, just a reason to convince themselves. Once the motivation to convince herself sprouted in the depths of her heart, even the most incomprehensible things would be able to be explained in her heart. In that case, could this so-called Earth Grand Magus Right Chin really be as invincible as he said? As Chen Guang walked closer, the boulder also knew that his disguise had been seen through and gave up on the idea of deceiving himself. With a loud rumbling sound, the round boulder slowly melted and turned into mud that flowed onto the road. In the blink of an eye, the center of the mud slowly rose up. First, a head emerged, then the entire body. In just a dozen seconds, a stone giant about 6 meters tall appeared in front of Chen Guang. This stone giant's body looked extremely human. His facial features were distinct, and his muscles were well defined. It was obvious that after being mutated, the members of the world of destruction still preferred the appearance of humans. "You're Chen Guang, the shameless Grand Magus Right Chin who stole the Earth Saint Core 300 years ago." The stone giant lowered his head and looked down at Chen Guang. His mouth didn't open, but a muffled voice came from his stomach. "Sire actually knows my real name." Chen Guang wasn't in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he began to chat with him with great interest. In just these 2 sentences, he had dug out the parts of his settings in the memories of the world of destruction from this person's mouth. It sounded pretty good. Sure enough, he was a standard villain. He stole the Earth Saint Core and was a shameless magister. It was really interesting. Of course. My world of destruction cannot live under the same sky as you. Even if you turn into ashes, we will still recognize you. If it wasn't for you stealing the Earth's Saint core, how would our world of destruction be trapped in this evil magic formation? How would we have no choice but to wander to a low-level world? Right, Chin, even if you die 1,000 times, it won't be a pity. The stone giant gradually became angry. His huge body even gradually turned red because he lost control of his emotions. Chen Guang learned new knowledge again. In the minds of these pitiful fellows, they were in existence called the World of Destruction Holy Clan. In their minds, the boundary of the World of Cups was a magic formation that trapped them. They didn't completely lose their memories of the real world. In their minds, that life was their experience of wandering to a lower-level world. Is that so? Unfortunately, you're not my match. Chen Guang raised his head and said casually. The stone giant said coldly, "Don't look down on me. Although the magic formation has cut off our channel to absorb elemental power from the outside world, we have already established a connection between the Dolua world and the other world. Although the elemental power in the other world is low-level and stinky, it's enough for our warriors to recover to their peak strength. In order to lure you here, our elders have already prepared for 20 years. Die. Taste the power of the World of Destruction Holy Clan's 9th Holy Warrior." The stone giant shouted loudly. He raised his fist high and punched at Chen Guang from above. It seemed to have the power of 1,000 caddies. However, Chen Guang only stretched out his index finger and caught the stone giant's huge fist lightly. His feet didn't move at all. Even the stone he stepped on didn't emit any dust. The stone giant's heavy fist was abruptly turned into nothingness by his finger. You're saying that this is your plot? Your goal is to lure me here? Of course. Bastard. Hand over the Earth Holy Core. Ever since we discovered that your soul imprint is also in the other world, we've been planning for this day. The stone giant shouted angrily as he used all his strength to press down his fist. Chen Guang shrugged and looked up at the stone giant. He sneered in a low voice, "I don't even know what the holy core you're talking about is. To be honest, your revenge story is so well made that it could almost be written into a novel. If I didn't know that this entire world was formed from my own imagination, I would almost believe it." Even until now, Chen Guang didn't know why the so-called world-shattering holy tribe waited until he was 20 years old to lure him to Mount Baylor. They should have attacked him when he was still a weak child. However, this wasn't important. In any case, they could definitely find a reasonable setting and explanation in their own story. The world created by the Heavenly Holy Grail was like this. From an outsider's point of view, this world structure and worldview were full of loopholes. However, if one was in it and became one of the characters, one wouldn't be able to notice these loopholes and would only feel that they were born this way. Otherwise, they would be like those Ocean Emperor-level experts in the Sea of Moments. They clearly knew that the Sea of Moments was not normal, it was a cage, but they could do nothing about it. Even after spending tens of thousands of years, and countless generations of predecessors had sacrificed themselves, they could only be trapped like caged birds in the low-level world created by the transcending Heaven Holy Grail. Compared to the Ocean Emperor-level experts in the transient sea, this so-called world-shattering 9th Holy Warrior was even more pitiful. However, he didn't deserve to be pitied, because the soul in his bones was that of a world-shattering killer whose hands were stained with blood in the real world. So, die. Chen Guang's pupils shrank. He activated his Earth Explosion ability. A wisp of extremely mysterious power emerged from the index finger of his left hand that was holding the stone man. It easily pierced through his fist and entered his body. In the next moment, the stone man's body started to bubble and explode. Every time a bubble exploded, a plume of thick smoke would surge out, bringing with it a large amount of soil and dust. With this move, Chen Guang understood the 9th Holy Warrior's superpower. It was indeed powerful. It actually combined the tremor's regeneration and Ripper's hardening. Unfortunately, his opponent was a Earth explosion. The difference in level was too great. It was like a small herbivorous dinosaur from the dinosaur era was helpless in front of a Tyrannosaurus rex. The stone man screamed hysterically. His body gradually softened and turned into mud that flowed down the mountain road. Billowing smoke and dust continued to rise. Leave your name, Ninth Holy Warrior. You are the first world-shattering person to die by my hand. You have the right to let me know your name. I am called Sergio. You shameful thief. The Elder will definitely avenge me. Sergio's voice gradually became softer. The mud that his body had turned into did not flow very far. Instead, it completely turned into dust and dispersed in the valley. This time, Chen Guang didn't show any mercy. Instead, he completely erased his life. He clenched his fist lightly, and the fingernail-sized fruit candy, in his palm, a mixture of yellow and green colors, completely shattered and transformed into the most basic earth elemental energy, disappearing in his hand like a sponge absorbing water. Chen Guang took a deep breath. This was probably how his fate with the world-shattering technique ended. The first full stop of the final chapter was also the ninth of the world. Chapter 801. As for why there were two Sergios, there was no need to think too much about it. Numbers were just code names, just like Sergios. Names like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 were probably just code names in the shattered world. The ranking of one's strength would probably give them codenames like Sergio's. Chen Guang returned to the car and calmly started the engine. Wu Miaowan widened her beautiful eyes and looked at her with a complicated expression. She could not understand Chen Guang's fighting style at all. The strength of this stone giant was clearly much stronger than the group of people she had encountered on the bus, but it could not resist at all in front of Chen Guang. In other words, even if Chen Guang could really resist this monster, why did the ground under his feet not seem to be affected at all after he blocked the monster's fist with his finger? One had to know that the monsters on the bus had even completely suppressed her master, Wu Qingming, and Xan Qin's master, Abbas Xan Yuan. They were both martial artists at the peak of bone strength. Great Magus Director, how did you do it? Wu Miaowan could not help but ask. Chen Guang was still focused on speeding up the car. He said calmly, I am a great magus, and you are just a mortal in this world. It is normal that you cannot understand my fighting style. That's not right. Don't the magicians in the novels chant incantations to cast spells? Wu Miaowan was skeptical. I don't have time to explain it to you. Chanting incantations before casting spells is the method of low-level magicians. When you reach the level of a great magus, you can chant incantations in your heart in advance, communicate with the elements, and instantly cast spells. Do you understand? When you become a great magus like me, you can maintain a resonance with the power of the elements at any time. You don't even need to chant incantations. With just a thought, the power of the elements will listen to my command. Forget it, you won't understand even if I explain it to you. This level is too high. Mortals like you who only think in web novels will never understand it. Chen Guang was getting a little impatient. This Wu Miaowan was like 100,000 wise. Can I learn it? Wu Miaowan was still greedy. Chen Guang coughed lightly. Are you sure? I'm sorry, but I'm studying earth magic, and it's very important for a man and a woman to practice together. You'll have to make love with me for at least 10 hours a day to slowly gain the ability to communicate with the elements. Are you sure you want to learn it? What is this? What kind of wretched sect is this? Xan Qin, Lu Fei, and Wu Miaowan shouted at the same time. At this time, in the deep mountains about 60 kilometers away from the four people, Xuelin and the others were walking slowly with their heads down. There were at least thousands of different earth elemental monsters around them. They were far more than the ones that Wu Miaowan had seen before. There were tall giants, short dwarves with barbs all over their bodies, and small sandstorms that were always shrouded in thick fog, making it hard to see their true form. Compared to the low-level earth elemental creatures that Qin Guang had seen before, these monsters moved in a strict formation and orderly manner. Although the formation was extremely long, there was no sign of chaos. It was completely silent throughout the whole process, giving off an extremely somber feeling. Walking at the front of the formation was a young man who looked no different from an ordinary person. However, if one were to look closely, one would notice that his skin was excessively shiny, and his face was faintly glowing with a golden metallic light. If Qin Guang was here, he would know that the metallic luster on this man's face was actually a sign that the soil had been compressed to the extreme. His body was even harder than the blade arm of the Earth Ripper. Unlike other monsters, this man's facial features were extremely fine, and his expression was not stiff. His walking posture was also very smooth, and he did not look like a mutated monster at all. At this time, he was frowning tightly as if he was thinking about something. It was this young man who really made Xuelin and the others afraid to take any action. Not long ago, a former employee of the Special Affairs Bureau tried to escape and was killed by a nearby monster who was in charge of escorting everyone with a spike in his chest. The young man flew into a rage without any warning. A wisp of yellow sand shot out from his fingertip, tightly wrapping around the monster that could turn his hand into a spike. In an instant, the wisp of yellow sand clenched tightly like a fist, and the insufferably arrogant monster exploded in an instant, dying without any ability to resist. After killing his own kind, the young man continued to walk forward expressionlessly, but the other monsters around him trembled slightly, not daring to make a fuss. This young man's strength was clearly a level higher than the other monsters, on another level. Even the other monsters, Xuelin and the others were completely no match for him, let alone this young man. Therefore, even if they were unwilling and had 1,000 schemes in their minds, they could not use them at all. They could only obediently hang their heads and become captives. The operation had completely failed. But why did this happen? As the leader of the task force and the actual commander of this operation, Xuelin's heart was filled with indescribable humiliation. He really could not understand it. The development of the situation had completely exceeded his expectations. Previously, when he was acting alone, everything was going so smoothly. Although the people of the Shattered were well trained, they were still far from being able to compete with him, who was a top Special Forces elite in Huaxia. The entire Shattered world was forced into chaos by him alone. This time, he personally led the team and had the help of 2 powerful internal force experts. The task force was well equipped and well trained. Initially, he thought that it would be a relaxing and merciless operation, but suddenly, everything changed. Without any warning, the operation was inexplicably leaked, and the scattered people were all surrounded. The originally ordinary assassins of the Shattered had all become unbeatable monsters. No matter how good the Special Forces elites and special agents were at military training, and no matter how good the new weapons designed to deal with internal force martial artists were, it was all in vain. Their whereabouts were exposed too strangely, and the enemy's ambush was too sudden. Their strength was too overwhelming, and the task force did not even have time to assemble the various equipment from their luggage. A few of them took out their light equipment and tried to counterattack, but it was useless against these monsters. They were either invulnerable, or they could recover on their own even if they were blasted into pieces. In the end, they captured everyone on their side without any bloodshed. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, Xuelin would have thought that he was dreaming. What was the origin of these monsters? Why were they hiding in this world, and what were they trying to do? Why hadn't anyone discovered such a strange situation after so many years? Also, where did those low-level monsters that were wandering around like headless flies come from? Were they transformed from the civilians of Utopia? Our goal is to eliminate them, so there should be no possibility of us negotiating with them. Why haven't they killed anyone yet? Instead, that young monster is protecting everyone's lives. Also, if they were really that strong, why did they have to negotiate with the country again and again because of me? Also, how could I have been so stupid before? Now that it had happened, thinking back carefully, at least 70 to 80% of the passengers on the same bus were unfamiliar faces. Why did I not notice anything when I was always cautious? Was I drugged last night? Shuo Lin's mind was churning with hundreds of thousands of whys. In all his years of life, he had never felt so lost and empty. What would the future hold? The task force members, who had a mission but were defeated for no reason, whether they were alive or dead, whether they could complete the mission, everything was unknown. In other words, according to the usual practice of military operations, the operation had failed from the beginning due to the intolerable error in the early intelligence work. The mission target had changed from a human to a monster, and the mission content had also undergone a fundamental change. All the preparatory work had become empty talk. Not to mention 2 senior inner force martial artists, even 10 or 100 senior inner force martial artists wouldn't be able to do anything. Now, he could only hope that Wu Miaowan could successfully escape and report the strange things in Mount Baylor. Then, the sacrifice of his team would not be meaningless. As for the rest, he would take it one step at a time. In this regard, Shuo Lin had no reason to blame anyone. In the past, there had been similar errors and omissions in intelligence when carrying out missions. Just like his own comrades in Shuo Lin's team, they were all wiped out because of a similar situation. International missions were not like domestic missions. Unexpected situations were not uncommon, but this time it was too contrary to common sense. As a soldier, Shuo Lin did not care about life and death, but he was not so afraid of death. He was mentally prepared for it. He felt extremely unwilling, just because the failure of the operation was too meaningless. The most luxurious Special Operations Task Force in history was defeated without any struggle. Wu Qingming and Abyss Axian Yuan followed behind Shuo Lin in the queue. Compared with Shuo Lin's frustration and depression, these 2 sect leaders, who were regarded as virtuous and respected in the martial world, were even more aggrieved. This time, we are really unlucky. I thought it was an opportunity to make a career, but I didn't expect to become a prisoner before any achievements were made. Sigh, Abyss, the reputation of both of us has been destroyed in a day. I'm afraid we will become the laughing stock of the martial world if this gets out. Wu Qingming, the beautiful woman in flowery clothes, said in a low voice rather dejectedly. She came with great ambitions, but in the end, she was utterly defeated. A few words were not enough to describe her grievances. Abyss Axian Yuan was more open-minded. Things have become like this. It's not our fault for fighting. You and I have made full preparations. We even brought our own treasures from our sections. We didn't take it lightly. I admit my defeat. But Xian Qin did not come, and Xiao Miao also escaped. As long as Xiao Miao can report this matter, it should be considered as a great contribution. Our sacrifice will not be in vain. The predecessors plant trees, and the descendants benefit from the shade. I understand the logic, but I am still a little unwilling. Who is like you, so unworldly? It is fine if you die. Sigh, if there is someone who can save us at this time, I promise to marry Xiao Miao to him. Even if he already has 17 or 18 wives, it doesn't matter. It's not impossible for me to be his servant girl. Stop dreaming. Just the young man in front of us already makes people feel invincible. God knows how many more powerful masters there are on the mountain. Don't think that this young man is so powerful, but in my opinion, he is just a small leader. Abbess Axian Yuan hugged the long sword in her arms tightly, her expression cold. The monsters of the world-shattering Holy Clan did not even take away her weapon, which showed the confidence of the world-shattering Holy Clan. They did not think that the attacks of these hostages could cause any harm to them. But there was still someone who made them feel afraid. It was Chen Guang, who rushed to the mountain from Wutuo town. At this time, in the depths of the primeval forest of Mount Baylor, in a military base that covered an area of about 300 acres, 4 people were sitting in a conference room. Chapter 802. 3 of them wore grayish-white robes and looked quite old. 2 of them had an Asian face, and 1 of them had a Western face. As for the last one, Chen Guang would have an impression of him if he saw him. In the images of the Special Affairs Bureau that Old Master Yan Jing had provided him, the director of the Special Affairs Bureau, Ouyang Tianqing, looked exactly like this. He was wearing a pitch-black cloak, and even his head was hidden under it. It was unknown what method he used to hide his face. Even though the lights in the conference room were shining directly on him, it was still pitch black under the cloak, making him look extremely eerie. The 4 of them looked like they were having a meeting, but they seemed to be absent-minded. Each of them was thinking about their own matters. Ouyang Tianqing was not as calm as he pretended to be. His hands were hidden under the table, rubbing his thighs violently, trying to hide his nervousness. He did not know what was going on. He was perplexed. The day before yesterday, he received a tip-off from his spy in the Guangding General Headquarters, saying that Huaxia was planning to attack the Broken, an assassin organization that was not worth mentioning in his eyes. Ouyang Tianqing, who had lost the upper hand, had turned from a powerful director of the Special Affairs Bureau into a street rat in hiding overnight. Needless to say, he was furious. Now that he was in the dark, and the movements of the Huaxia authorities were under his control, Ouyang Tianqing would not be able to live up to his years of planning if he did not take the opportunity to do something. Therefore, he immediately came out of his hiding place and came to Mount Baral in advance to cooperate with the Broken. As the saying went, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. There was no dispute between the 2 parties, and they immediately agreed. Although Ouyang Tianqing was a general without an army and had no subordinates, he was an expert himself, and the Broken was happy to have him around. At least before the situation changed, Ouyang Tianqing had a higher position when he talked to the Broken and the others. He had the right to be arrogant. He knew how powerful an inner force martial artist was, and he knew that his former agents from the Special Affairs Bureau and the Security Bureau were not easy to deal with. Now that they were well equipped, their combat power should not be underestimated. If he did not make a move, even if the Broken successfully ambushed them, they would not be able to gain much of an advantage. However, Ouyang Tianqing did not think that the Shatterer would succeed so easily. Although their assassins were powerful, the Special Affairs Bureau agents that he had personally trained in the past were not weak either. There was no way they would be so stupid as to fall into a trap. However, none of this mattered. First, he would wait for the world of destruction to suffer a great loss. Then, he, who was in charge of the Central Army, would make a move at the crucial moment and kill the 2 reckless old women from the small sections. Not only would he be able to deal a heavy blow to Chen Guang's Guangding headquarters, he would also be able to show those old farts in Beijing how powerful he was. Moreover, he would be able to let the world of destruction's assassins understand that even if he did not have a single soldier under him, he was still someone they could rely on. Yes, Ouyang Tianqing had a good plan. He could help the world of destruction overcome this crisis, deal a heavy blow to the General Directorate of Illumination, and easily win over a batch of subordinates who were well trained in military affairs. What he could not understand was that World Breaker's ambush had actually succeeded this morning. They did not encounter any resistance and easily subdued the special task force from Huaxia. Moreover, they captured them alive. This was the first time Ouyang Tianqing was shocked. But what really made him panic was what he saw and heard next. On the projection screen in the conference room, the World Breaker, who was in charge of commanding the operation, had sent a short video to Ouyang Tianqing as a report. In the video, Ouyang Tianqing saw a scene that he would never forget. He could not help but scream. What kind of monsters are they? What made him calm down was the calm expression and tone of the other 3 World Breaker elders. They did not seem to care about the monsters in the video at all. Instead, they looked as if they were used to it. Later, Ouyang Tianqing found an excuse to go to the toilet and left the conference room. When he walked outside, he realized that the guards outside the conference room had also turned into monsters. He remembered the 2 young men. They looked simple and honest, but their eyes were glowing. One look and he knew they were promising. Previously, he had thought about nurturing the 2 of them after he recruited World Breaker. Therefore, before he entered the conference room, he had chatted with the 2 young men who looked at him with admiration. The 2 young men respected him very much, which satisfied his vanity that had been lost for a long time. However, the 2 of them had turned into monsters made of cement. Look at the greenish-gray skin. What is this? Even their eyeballs are gone. And the cement dust is dripping from their faces. This is terrifying. What was even more terrifying was that the 2 of them did not seem to notice it. They did not think there was anything wrong with them. Instead, they were grinning at him passionately. What did it feel like to have 2 cement statues grinning at him with cement dust dripping from the corners of their mouths? Even though he might be one of the strongest inner force martial artists in the world, Ouyang Tianqing could not accept it. Compared to them, he was as ordinary as a barbecue stall owner. Did I accidentally fall into a monster's nest? Is the World Breaker not as ordinary as it looks? Is the assassin organization just a cover? They are actually monsters hiding on Earth. Oh my God! At this moment, Ouyang Tianqing's feelings could be described as follows. He was someone who thought he was the male lead. He thought it was impressive that he had inner force. After all, ordinary people were like ants in front of him. In the end, he suddenly realized that the world he was living in was actually the setting of a fantasy novel. He was just the male lead of an urban novel. How sad was that? Other than yelling at the sky that he was cheating, there was nothing else he could say. Ouyang Tianqing returned to the conference room in a daze. What made him even sadder was that the 3 old men who controlled World Breaker started to talk about terms that he could not understand. World Breaker Saint Clan, Earth Saint Core, Elemental Power, Grand Magus Right Chin, Dolua World, Low-Level World, Magic Arrays, Barriers, a shocking conspiracy that had been set up for 20 years. What was all this? Why did they feel that he should have known? Why did they not think that there was a dumbfounded person here who was about to pee his pants? Every new term was like a knife stabbing into his heart, causing his scalp to go numb. However, the 3 of them did not feel that there was anything wrong with them telling him all this. If he had not seen the monster that turned into a stone man with his own eyes, and if he did not know many of the people in the video that was uploaded, and they were definitely his subordinates when he was in the Special Affairs Bureau, Ouyang Tianqing would have thought that the people from World Breaker were playing a joke on him. They would not play games to tease him at this time. It was not Halloween today. Also, it was their first time meeting each other, and they had never had any contact with each other before. However, according to the 3 of them, he had been working with them for 20 years. He was actually the representative of the World Breaker Saint Clan on Earth. They were still plotting to kill the Grand Magus Right Chin and take back the Earth Saint Core. Then, they would use Mount Baylor as the core to attack Earth and rule the world. Wait, Right Chin. Wasn't that Qin Guang? Chen Guang was actually the Grand Magus of this Dolua world. Don't lie to me, I'm not well educated. These people are even more imaginative than I am. Oh, right, they were planning to continue to strengthen the World Breakers Saint clan after conquering Earth. They wanted to spread the glory of the Earth element to the entire universe. That's right, they wanted to conquer the universe. Are you guys crazy? Ouyang Tianqing felt uncomfortable, but he did not dare to retort. All he could do was laugh along with the other party. He looked like he was praising Ouyang Tianqing's words. How awkward was this? He did not understand why these monsters would treat him as their representative. However, this was not important. What was important was that he could still chat with them. The three of them did not suddenly turn into stone men and eat him up. Forget it. I don't care if they're crazy or not. I'm sitting at the same table with the three most influential great elders of the Shatter Saint tribe. Although I don't understand what they're saying, it's not a problem for me to pretend that I do. If what they said is true, then I will also be in existence above billions of people in the future. If this was just a dream, then it didn't matter. When I woke up, I would pretend that nothing had happened. Therefore, even though he looked calm on the surface, he was actually very scared. The little sheep in his heart suddenly turned into a big shark. This kind of thing would be quite a blow to anyone. Suddenly, the expression of the great elder sitting in the middle turned gloomy. He stopped what he was saying and said, "Shurjiu is dead. He just died." What? Who did it? Another old man asked angrily. The great elder coughed twice. Who do you think it is? Who else could it be other than the shameless thief Right Chin? I didn't expect this guy to have changed his body after 300 years. He still has such terrifying magic. I even suspect that he may have touched the realm above the Grand Magus. The third elder with a Westerner face stood up in fear. Impossible. Elemental controllers don't exist. The great elder patted the table lightly. Walter, be quiet. Don't scare our esteemed guest. The great elder smiled at Ouyang Tianqing. Ouyang Tianqing also smiled. He had thought that the great elder's face was wrinkled like an old man. Now that he realized it, he realized that these were the cracks on the pottery figurines that had been smashed. He said, "Elder Tu, you are too polite. How can I be scared by such a small matter?" "Hi, Ouyang Tianqing, will definitely advance and retreat with your holy clan." The great elder with the surname Tu nodded and said to third elder Walter, "That is just my speculation. Elemental controllers have disappeared since the mythological era. Of course, even if Right Chin really has a part of the controller's power, it does not matter. We are no longer the world-shattering holy clan from 300 years ago. We have the hostages that he cares about and the ultimate weapon that took 20 years to create. It is not difficult to deal with him. To borrow a phrase from this lowly world, how can the monkey's son escape from the palm of the Buddha? Great elder is right. The second elder, who also had an oriental face, said seriously. By the way, Mr. Ouyang, the hostages will probably be here soon. Right Chen will be here soon. Otherwise, please rest in our underground secret room. If Right Chen really becomes an elemental controller, there might be an earth-shattering battle. Although you have some special abilities, they might not be enough for you to protect yourself in such a battle. But don't worry, we will not hide it from you on purpose. To let you have the deepest and clearest understanding of our world-shattering holy clan strength, we will use the advanced technology from the real world. Old Ni, what is that called again? The second elder, Elder Ni, coughed softly. Xiaomi and the 360's HD camera will be broadcasting live. The great elder nodded. That's right, Mr. Ouyang. Don't worry and wait quietly in the secret room. Ouyang Tianqing had wanted to run away, so he quickly agreed and left. Originally, he wanted to grow a pair of wings and fly into the sky. However, the world-shattering Holy Tribe had sent 2 followers to follow him. They said they were protecting him, but they were actually monitoring him. However, the underground secret room provided by the world-shattering Holy Clan was a few hundred meters underground. It was made of fine steel, and there was a secret escape route. It seemed quite reliable. Ouyang Tianqing felt a little more at ease. This was the setup of the world-shattering. It was a combination of many modern technologies. It was like an iron wall. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was the last trump card of the world-shattering. Ouyang Tianqing sighed in his heart. He sat on the comfortable crocodile leather sofa and poured himself a 1982 Lafite. He looked at the dense surveillance screens in front of him and thought, forget it. Anyway, the world-shattering Holy Clan has no ill intentions toward me. I'll see what they have up their sleeves. Sometimes, he hoped that he was not dreaming. He hoped that it was real. Although it was not good to be a traitor, as long as he could get the power he wanted, why not? If these rock monsters really had the power to rule the world, he would be the first human to officially cooperate with them. Even if he became a puppet emperor, he would be much stronger than being the director of the Special Affairs Bureau. That was the real power. Martial artists of the pugilistic world. Peerless secret manuals. Break through the void. Go and play with them. Only the power that was held in one's hands and would never fall into anyone else's hands was truly precious. Ouyang Tianqing's thoughts were not unreasonable. Whether what he saw and heard today was real or not, it was not a bad thing for him. Based on the footage he saw, 2 warriors from the world-shattering Holy Clan easily subdued the leaders of Thousand Despair Sect and Thousand Flower Valley. Ouyang Tianqing had reason to believe that the world-shattering Holy Clan could rule the world. Chapter 803. In the conference room, as soon as Ouyang Tianqing left, Third Elder Walter asked Elder Earth, Great Elder, I don't quite understand why you value this ordinary human so much. Elder Earth grinned, he's a very ambitious person. I'm also very curious about the power in his body. He's walking a different path from us, which is to strengthen himself. Although he looks weak now, his cultivation method seems to have unlimited possibilities. If we want to rule the universe, we might have to use the cultivation method of people like him. It's not a bad thing to use him and find more people with similar abilities to become our puppets. Elder Ni and Walter nodded in unison. Walter said, Great Elder is wise. Elder Ni smiled, although the elemental power in this low-level world is thin, the universe is vast and boundless. No one knows if there will be other powerful races. We shouldn't let our guard down. But it doesn't matter. We, the world-shattering Holy Clan, are high-level Earth beings. We have a unique advantage. As long as the core is not destroyed, we will never die. Take back the Holy Core, rule the low-level world, and counterattack the Dolua world is just around the corner. Elder Earth said passionately, that's right. Even in his dreams, Right Chin would never have thought that we would benefit from this disaster, right? I swear, I will definitely find the despicable person who set up the magic array to seal us here. We, the world-shattering Holy Clan, will never be slaves. This group of pathetic fellows was completely immersed in the imagination brought about by their fabricated memories. They would never have thought that not long ago, Chen Guang and Xayan Qin's group of 3 were bragging and casually came up with the name Dolua World. Their memories were refreshed again. They would never understand the true gap between their ranks, just like how ants would never understand how birds soar in the sky. It was the same logic. The true king of the Earth Elemental, the Earth Exploder Chen Guang, was getting closer and closer to them. They couldn't resist at all. How far are we? How much longer? Enchanting asked anxiously when the car was on the way. Lu Fei asked, "What do you plan to do when we get there? After all, we only have, the three of you." Although Lu Fei didn't want to admit it, if they were to really fight with their lives on the line, she wouldn't be of much help. On the contrary, she would be more of a burden. She had also thought of asking Chen Guang to drop her off in advance so that she could find a place to hide and wait for the dust to settle before making any plans. If Chen Guang won, then everything would be fine. If Chen Guang lost, he would have to find a way to survive. As long as there's life, there's hope. There had to be someone alive to avenge him, right? However, from time to time, there would be one or two zombie-like mutated monsters wandering around. Lu Fei knew that she did not have the slightest ability to protect herself. In the end, she did not mention this matter. If they were to die together, then so be it. Anyway, this was fate. Chen Guang first checked the distance between him and Xuelin, and then said, "Soon, I'll be there in 10 minutes. You guys don't have to worry about anything, just watch me act tough." Ha! Enchanting, Wu Miaowan, and Lu Fei thought they had misheard. What did he just say? Act tough. Chen Guang did not pay attention and quickly corrected himself. Ahem, 3 beautiful ladies, the one sitting next to you is the famous Earth Grand Magus Right Chin in the Dolua world. It's not an exaggeration to say that the Earth elemental creatures are toys in my hands. This so-called world-shattering holy clan, which is this group of stone people, is no match for me at all. If I want to squash them flat, I can squash them flat. If I want to squash them round, I can squash them round. It doesn't matter. No, what you said just now was acting tough. Enchanting was so direct and exposed everyone's thoughts. There's no such thing. You must have misheard. What I said was, just watch me invincible. Yes, that's right. Your Excellency was too nervous that you had auditory hallucinations. The best actor of a generation, Chen Guang's godly acting skills were so good, and he was so unreasonable when it came to bluffing. In fact, some things couldn't be said that he was just bluffing. For example, the story that he casually made up became the truth under the interference of the heavenly Holy Grail. It became the background of the story that really existed in the realm of punishment. What was the biggest lie in the world? It was the whole world cooperating with me to lie to all of you. After driving out for about a few minutes, Chen Guang stopped the car again. The road in front was gone. From the place where he stopped, at least more than 300 meters of the road had completely collapsed. This was obviously man-made. This was originally a mountain road, and there was no other route to go around it. But the Grand Magus was very calm. He did not even bother to get out of the car. He just stretched his head and hand out of the driver's window, ready to pretend to cast a spell and forcefully use the enhanced version of the Ruler of Earth to rebuild a section of the road. It was easy and casual. Unexpectedly, Enchanting suddenly said, "Chief Grand Magus, can you let us hear the spell you cast?" "Hey! Your Excellency's request is too much. The spell of every Grand Magus is an extremely precious treasure. It must not be easily read to others." Chen Guang. What do you mean others? You. Enchanting was really sad this time. Maybe it was because Chen Guang's acting was too real. She felt that the memories of the Grand Magus rite were gradually taking over. Maybe it was as he said, that his soul was still that soul, but in her heart, he was no longer the simple Chen Guang. This was really disgusting. One of the things that she was most worried about was slowly becoming a reality. Alright, I admit that you have a very important position in my heart. No, the other 2 beautiful ladies also have a very high position in my heart. You are all on the same side, not others. Listen carefully. I will only say it once. The speed of the incantation must conform to the three great laws of spellcasting, just like the three great laws of thermodynamics in your real world. It cannot be violated, or else I will suffer the backlash of the elemental power. So when I cast the spell, I speak very quickly. If you can't hear me clearly, don't blame me. Master Guang felt that his foundation in swindling was really getting better and better. It was completely at his fingertips without any obstacles. Go ahead, we are all listening. The three ladies hurriedly focused. After all, it was magic. Who wouldn't be curious? Balala little fairy, move the mountains and fill the seas. In about a second, Chen Guang finished reciting the 10 words. As soon as his voice fell, under the dumbfounded gazes of the three women, countless gravel and soil flew up from the collapsed road and pressed down on the mountain along the winding road. In a few seconds, the pressure was extremely tight, and the road that had originally collapsed grew little by little. Let's go. As Chen Guang hollered, he started the vehicle once more. The road hasn't completely recovered. Ruffy reminded loudly. Chen Guang chuckled. It's fine. When I drive over, it will naturally recover. Chen Guang wasn't bragging. As the BMW 3 Series sped forward with a roar, the collapsed road spread forward at the same speed as the speed of the car. There was no road in the world, but the place that I want to walk on naturally becomes a road. You read too quickly just now. We didn't hear you clearly at all. With the problem of the broken road solved, the three ladies turned their attention back to his incantation. Wu Miaowan couldn't help but complain. Enchanting also nodded repeatedly. That's right. I only heard the first word ba and the last word c. What exactly are you chanting? Ruffy didn't say anything. She had a nagging feeling that something was wrong. Not long ago, she and her niece had glanced at the Balala little fairy cartoon, so much so that she had a vague feeling that Chen Guang was chanting that thing. But looking at his serious expression, it didn't seem like he was talking nonsense. She began to doubt herself again. Ba and the sea. Bahamut. Magic sea. After thinking for a long time, Ruffy probed. Chen Guang was stunned. As expected of big sister Ruffy. Even the Balala little fairy could explain it for you. I'm impressed. Chen Guang had read this legend before. Bahamut was a dragon god in Arabian mythology. It represented the universe and was shaped like a giant fish. It floated on the endless sea and had a giant bull on its back. On the bull's back was a ruby mountain with an angel standing on it. Above the angel's head were the 6 layers of hell, above the 6 layers of hell was earth, and above earth were the 7 layers of heaven. Words couldn't even describe the enormity of Bahamut. It was impossible for human eyes to reach it. In the Arabian Nights, it was said that after Jesus took a look at it, he fell unconscious for 3 days and 3 nights. In a sense, it did make sense to forcefully drag the name of Bahamut into the attribute of earth magic. If he didn't know that he was chanting the Balala little fairy, Chen Guang would have believed it himself. He also accepted his fate. He really had late-stage naming cancer. It seemed that even chemotherapy would be useless. Seeing him silent and constipated, Enchanting and the other 2 thought that they had guessed correctly and started chanting the name. Master Guang, who had a bump on his head, didn't say a word. The sorrow in his heart was indescribable. This shameless thief's magic is getting more and more profound. World 1, what should we do now? About 300 to 400 meters above the mountain, 8 warriors of the World Shatterer Sacred Clan, who used to be the top assassins of the World Shatterer, were looking down at the BMW 3 Series that was approaching rapidly from not far away. The person called World 1 looked very similar to the young man who had led the arrest team. He still had human facial features, but there was a pitch-black horn protruding from his forehead. The aura around the horn was similar to that of the Earth Destroyer that Qin Guang had dealt with before, but his aura seemed to be stronger. Apart from that, World One's entire body was covered in ferocious-looking fangs. Perhaps it couldn't be called wrapped, but rather grown on his body. Perhaps this was his compromise for not being able to maintain his human form. It doesn't matter. When he moves forward and is directly below us, the 8 of us will attack together. Even if he's a great magister, he won't be able to resist us. But just now, Elder Ward asked us to only perform the duty of monitoring and delaying. He didn't ask us to attack. World 9 is already dead. Rai Chen's magic isn't like those ordinary people's toys. It can be fatal. A monster that looked similar to the Earth Destroyer beside World 1 said. It had a pair of huge blade-like arms. World 1 slapped the blade-like monster's face. Trash. World 8, you're trash just like World 9. Do you think we're all like you two brothers? Cowards. The Elder ordered us to protect ourselves, but since we have the ability to kill him, why do we need to protect ourselves? Besides, don't you want to feel the power of the Earth Saint Core up close? Don't you want to become an existence like World Sand? World 8's mind flashed with World Sand's cold face. That's right. Compared to the numeric generation of warriors that had mutated into monsters, World Sand, World Shadow, or World Blade, who had titles, maintained their human forms much better. Especially that World Sand. On the surface, he didn't seem to have any changes, but his sand controlling technique allowed him to become the undisputed #1 expert below the Elder. The world-shattering Holy Clan had a strict hierarchy. They relied on strength and life class. World 8's body gradually trembled. World 1, I want to evolve. World 1 grinned proudly. A few stone-like cracks appeared on his face. He hurriedly closed his mouth and said in a low voice, "It's right that you have this desire. If we don't fight for it ourselves, even if we manage to obtain the Earth Saint Core in the end, there will still be 3 elders and 18 titled rankers ahead of us. How many years and months will we have to wait for our turn to communicate with the Saint Core? How long will we have to wait before we can comprehend the elemental power to a deeper level? Stop talking nonsense. Prepare to attack." Although the souls of these assassins from the world shattering had been injected with false memories and their bodies were stuffed with abilities that made them mutated, the selfishness in the depths of their human nature had never disappeared. The law of the jungle and the survival of harming others to benefit oneself was unimpeded no matter whether it was on Earth or in the so-called Dolua world. Walter had ordered World 1 to World 8, who weren't titled experts, to only monitor and not make a move. It might not be because he wanted to protect them because of World 9's death. It wasn't wrong to say that he had selfish motives. Actually, Qin Guang knew from the start that there were 8 fellows sneakily spying on him from above. However, he didn't care at all. As long as they came, he would guarantee that they would die as splendidly as fireworks. A loud rumbling sound suddenly exploded in the valley of Mount Baylor. When Qin Guang passed through the valley below, World 1 and the others decisively made their move. These 8 people were like the 8 immortals crossing the sea in the Eastern myths. They each displayed their divine abilities. The sharp horn between World 1's eyebrows shot out a ray of black light. This black light grew with the wind and became several meters thick. It swept towards the road in front of Qin Guang's carriage. World 8 jumped down without any hesitation. His pair of blade-like arms flickered with cold light. He chopped down from the sky. The ear-piercing whooshing sound of the wind was comparable to an eagle's cry. The abilities of the other 6 people weren't bad either. In mid-air, all kinds of colorful earth elemental attacks bombarded down in unison. They were determined to kill in one strike. Chapter 804. When Enchanting and the other two in the car heard the deafening noise above their heads, they all poked their heads out of the car to look at the sky. They didn't know it if they didn't look, but they were shocked by what they saw. The rolling thick smoke that covered the sky, the dazzling cold light that flew everywhere, the rumbling thunder mixed with the ear-piercing screech of the air being torn apart, and all kinds of strange forces that they had never seen before danced wildly in the sky. No matter how tough the three's nerves were after being trained by Qinguang, they still received a great shock. If it wasn't for the fear of disturbing Qinguang, who was madly speeding up, the three of them would have probably screamed in shock. Head, Enchanting's voice trembled as she cautiously reminded Qinguang. Enchanting really didn't want to admit that she was obviously a martial artist who possessed the unique skills of inner strength, but ever since she came to Mount Baylor with him, she seemed to have become a completely ignorant little girl who always liked to make a fuss. She also knew that she shouldn't be like this. This was not good, it was embarrassing, and it might make Qinguang feel annoyed. But she couldn't control herself at all. If I had a choice, would also want to have the demeanor of a general who wouldn't bat an eyelid even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of me. But I really can't do it. Everything I see is more terrifying than Mount Tai collapsing, okay? What is that black light? Why did the stones that were shone on by this light inexplicably turn into powder? The road was so strangely and neatly broken earlier, it was probably caused by this thing, right? There was also the yellow sand, which could actually cut a hole in the mountain when it scraped against it. And that monster with two arms that looked like two big knives, aren't you afraid of falling to your death by rushing down like that? And that round stone is also a person. That's right. This is a person. There's a faintly discernible face on the stone. Enchanting retracted her head, her heart beating wildly as she reminded in a low voice. She looked nervously at Qinguang, hoping that he could come up with a solution. Wu Miaowan and Lu Fei, who were sitting in the back row, were not any better. They could only place their hopes on Qinguang and stare at him. In the end, old Master Guang, whom everyone regarded as their last hope, was still whistling and calmly stepping on the accelerator, not even batting an eyelid. The three of them saw that he had a calm expression on his face. He didn't care about the strange sounds above his head, nor did he care about the smoke and dust rising from the falling rocks in front of him. They were stunned. Could it be that he was planning to use his speed to rush over? That's right, this could still be considered as a method. Something wasn't right. If there were living monsters among the things that fell, they couldn't have escaped so easily, right? Quick, think of something. Ruffy cried out. Lord Guang snapped his fingers. All right, beautiful lady, as you wish. Don't just talk. It was about to fall. It's about to hit us. Wu Miaowan screamed at the top of her lungs. She stuck her head out and stared at the ceiling above her. Her scalp was about to explode. Oh, boundless earth! Heed my command. The root of all things. Become my helper. The soul of the earth, freeze. Shatter. Destroy. As urgent as my command. Qinguang finally made a move. He still had both hands on the steering wheel, but in order to make himself appear more serious and cautious, like an Earth Grand Magus with an attitude, he made up another set of incantations. It was an extended version, and he chanted it out like a machine gun. The effect of acting mysterious was very obvious. At the very least, the other three people in the car were stunned by his long incantation. Although he looked more like a racer at the moment, and not a magician in Harry Potter who held a magic wand and held a magic manual while chanting, compared to his previous incantation, since it was so long, its power must be frightening, right? That's right, he chanted it so fast that he couldn't even hear what he was chanting, let alone the others. Of course, as he chanted the incantation, he also tried to control the Earthburster's superpower. At the beginning, it was unfamiliar to him, but he gradually got used to it. It was the same with superpowers. The more he used them, the more effective they became. With a thought, an extremely mysterious wave surged out of his body, surging like a boulder being thrown into a lake. It spread out in all directions at the same speed as the electromagnetic wave. In an instant, she and the other 7 people were all shrouded in this wave. The loud rumbling suddenly disappeared, and it was even more abrupt than when it came. It was like a change from extreme movement to extreme stillness. It was so abrupt that it made Enchanting and the other 2 feel nauseous. The 3 of them stretched their heads to look at the sky, and for a moment, they were completely stunned. If it wasn't for the fact that the car was still speeding forward, they would have thought that time had stopped. The pitch-black light that seemed to be able to corrode everything froze, and the rolling yellow sand that filled the sky stopped moving. It didn't even float normally. The boulder that rolled down was inexplicably floating in the air. The 3 of them could even vaguely see the frightened faces that appeared on the boulder from time to time. As for the monster that was waving its blade-like arms, it was even more amusing. It floated there motionlessly, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. It was like a doll that was tied up with a rope. An indescribable sense of despair and powerlessness rose in she and the others' hearts. Previously, they thought that when Sergio died, there was at least an intense fight, but now they knew that they were ridiculously wrong. Right, Chen and they weren't on the same level at all. Was this the power of the legendary elemental controller? They had no idea how Right Chin had attacked, nor did they know what had happened. However, the elemental power that they were so proud of had been completely sealed in an instant. Even their connection with the elemental core had been completely cut off. It was as if the world had been covered by an extremely dense and intricate net. This large net bound everything firmly, and even Sergio, who could turn into sand, was unable to escape. Every grain of sand that he had turned into was also trapped in midair. The difference between them was no longer as simple as an ant and an elephant. Even if an ant faced a giant elephant, it could at least move a little. Even if it was stomped flat, it could at least struggle a little. However, the 8 of them were completely frozen in place with just a thought from the other party. Even their thoughts seemed to have slowed down by half a beat, let alone struggling. In a daze, an indescribable feeling suddenly rose in the hearts of the 8 of them. This feeling came abruptly and without warning, but it was extremely violent. It surged up from the bottom of their hearts like a tidal wave, and was unstoppable. In an instant, it completely engulfed the 8 of them's consciousness. They were still frozen in mid-air, but they seemed to hear a faint summoning sound in their ears. This summoning sound was as soft as a whisper, so much so that they couldn't hear it clearly. However, when this sound rang out, the souls of the 8 of them trembled violently. This summoning seemed to have come from their ancestors, and it was very strong. They clearly knew that this might be taking their lives, but they just couldn't summon the slightest bit of resistance in their hearts. This wasn't because Chen Guang had used some evil technique like the bewitching demonic sound. In fact, he had only completely released the aura and elemental waves of his earth-paced exploder. But for the 8 of them, the level of the earth-paced exploder was too high. For elemental creatures, the level suppression was deeply rooted in the depths of their souls. Back then, after Chen Guang absorbed the crystal cores of 4 types of earth creatures, he didn't even have the slightest resistance against the super-weakened version of the Chaos Being's black hole ability. Now, the level of his earth-paced exploder was even higher than that of the Chaos Being. Although the aura of World 1 to World 8 seemed to be a little stronger than that of the Destruction Being, that was only because they were native Earth elemental creatures in this Dolua world. They were originally in their prime, but in fact, their level of life wasn't as good as that of the Destruction Being. At most, they could only be compared to the Ripper. In the face of Chen Guang, the true master of the punishment realm, the difference in level was infinitely magnified. The attraction of the earth-paced exploder's elemental waves was simply like a drug addict. Even though they knew that it was a dead end and a pit of fire, they still wanted to jump into it. Dying in the hands of the other party wasn't painful, but a kind of glory. Reason told World 1 and the others that they must persevere. They must not indulge in the call from their ancestors, but their emotions were completely out of control. The BMW 3 Series was still speeding on the road, and World 1 and the others who were fixed in mid-air were gradually left behind. Enchanting and the other two who were only in charge of the car looked back and heaved a long sigh of relief. I was scared to death. It was a close shave. Chief Great Magician is mighty. Chen Guang smiled, it's not over yet. Ah. Lu Fei was shocked. Chen Guang asked again, do you want to see fireworks? Fireworks? The three of them didn't quite understand what he meant, and asked blankly. Chen Guang nodded, that's right, fireworks. With a snap, he suddenly snapped his fingers, and an even more deafening sound came from behind. When the three women heard this, they turned their heads and saw the colorful objects floating in the air explode. It was just like what he said, they were like gorgeous fireworks in the night sky. Chen Guang placed his left hand outside the car door and his right hand on the steering wheel. Without a sound, 8 colorful lights flew over from behind like meteors and landed in his hand. His left hand silently squeezed, crushing the objects in his palm and absorbing them. After that, he focused on driving again. World 1 and the others were ultimately unable to resist the pressure that came from the depths of their souls. After the commotion passed, everything returned to normal. World 1 and the others are dead. They all died at the same time. The expressions of the three elders in the world-shattering base, who were originally waiting for Chen Guang to walk into the trap, changed drastically. Elder Ni even roared in anger. Elder 2 turned his head and glared at third Elder Walter, what's going on? Didn't I tell them not to act blindly without thinking? Walter clenched his teeth. I did warn World 1, but it's obvious that he didn't listen to my orders and acted on his own. Damn it. We can't just let it go like this. We have to punish them together. Punish their family severely. They were obviously trying to get their hands on the Saint Nucleus in advance. Elder 2 changed the topic and said, ahem, Walter, you can't say that. We are of the same race. I believe you understand the attraction of the Saint Nucleus to our world-shattering holy tribe. Of course, it might not be World 1 who took the initiative. It could also be that Right Chin discovered them and took the initiative to attack. Great Elder. This. Walter seemed to be unwilling to accept this. Elder 2 waved his hand. All right, Sher Shah and the others have arrived, right? Let them imprison the hostages in the prison, then let all the titled warriors go to the first secret room. Elder Ni and Walter's expressions changed. Have you decided to use the final weapon so quickly? Great Elder nodded heavily. There's no other choice. Since Right Chen could kill World 1 and the others at the same time, it means that he is indeed very strong. There's a saying in the low-level world, even a lion uses its full strength to catch a rabbit. It's never wrong to be cautious. About 7 or 8 minutes later, Chen Guang finally stopped the car. Chapter 805. In front of him was an iron gate disguised as a stone wall. Outside of this iron gate was the end of the Baylor Mountain Scenic Road. The iron gate was built on top of a mountain. Looking up from the entrance, it was a towering mountain that towered into the clouds. If he wasn't 100% sure that Xuelin was locked behind the iron gate about 4 to 5 kilometers away, even he would have almost been fooled by this perfectly disguised iron gate. Without much effort, he waved his hand, and the mountain near the Iron Gate disintegrated. The Iron Gate, which was about 4 to 5 meters tall, collapsed with a loud bang. He reignited the engine and turned on the lights. The wheels rolled over the fallen Iron Gate and slowly entered the pitch-black tunnel. After passing through the tunnel, it was another world. Perhaps this was the most beautiful place in Baylor Mountain. As far as the eye could see, the green trees were like a carpet, and the broad-leaved forest in early autumn seemed to still grow lush in the humid and warm air. A forest path led straight into the depths. The four of them got out of the car and walked forward side by side. This forest path seemed to have people coming and going all year round. The places where their feet landed were trampled until not even a blade of grass grew. The shrubs and flowers on both sides of the road were trampled until they were crooked. There were huge footprints on the soft ground that extended all the way inside, indicating that a large number of people had passed through here not long ago. Ridiculous. White Chin actually dared to bring those 3 women along. In the conference room, Ward waved his arms agitatedly, half roaring and half in surprise. Elder Earth grinned. Isn't this good? We now have 3 more hostages. Elder and I looked at the calm Chen Guang in the monitor and said with some worry, could it be that he has absolute confidence in dealing with us, so he didn't take it seriously at all? Are you kidding me? What right does he have to look down on us? When he stole the sacred nucleus 300 years ago, wasn't he also chased by us? Elder Earth was full of confidence. At this moment, someone knocked on the door of the conference room. Elder Earth raised his eyebrows. Come in. A lump of mud at the door first poked its head inside, then said in a very nervous tone, reporting to Great Elder, it's that. Sure Shaw, Walter interrupted the mud, what's wrong with the world's sand? I'm not sure. He's always spouting nonsense and is unwilling to cooperate. Why don't the 3 elders come and take a look together? The mudman's voice became softer and softer. The Earth Elder stood up angrily. Nonsense. What time is it now? Why are you still making a fuss? Let's go. Let's go take a look. In the first secret room of the Broken World base, Sher Shah was shouting at the other 17 people, you've all been tricked. This is a scam. You will all die. There was no such thing as eternal life. I killed people, I killed my own kind, shouldn't you be angry and sad? Later on, he gradually understood. From then on, his life seemed to have entered a dead end. Every other year, he would be thrown into the cage with the others. The only difference was that the cage got bigger and bigger. More and more people were thrown in with him. Other than him, the other people were getting older and stronger. The only thing that didn't change was this teacher's request. Every time, he had to live alone or everyone else. Until a certain day 2 years ago, when he walked out of the cage for the last time, he had his own name. He wasn't called Little Life because he liked to play with sand. His name was Sher Shah. He became the youngest titled killer in the world, shattering at the age of 16. At the same time, he became the strongest titled killer. On this day, he killed the last person in his life, the teacher who had always thrown him into a cage. He swore that he would never take the initiative to kill anyone ever again, and he would never allow anyone to kill in front of him. Unlike other titled killers, at the age of 16, he went to the lake behind the base and built a wooden house. He lived there for 2 years. During these 2 years, the World Shattering wanted him to go on a mission more than once, which was to kill people. However, his answer was very simple. Either you kill me or you let me live here quietly. The 3 elders couldn't understand why the World Shattering's perfect talent nurturing system would produce a freak who refused to kill but was shockingly strong. It wasn't the first time that the 3 of them had the thought of eliminating him, but in the end, they couldn't bear to part with the most talented young killer in history. They thought that since he was harmless, they might as well let him live by the lake alone, with the sand and the stupid fish in the lake. From then on, he lived by the lake alone. During these 2 years, only the other person who had a similar fate as him, the World Blade, would come to visit him from time to time and chat with him. However, Sher Shah hated the World Blade because he would always grab the fattest fish from the fish that he had planned to release and roast it. Then, he would force Sher Shah to eat it. But forget it. It wasn't bad to have someone to chat with from time to time. This continued all the way until last night. Sher Shah didn't know why he left the lake and returned to the base. He couldn't remember why he led people to deal with the invaders in a daze. His mind was always muddled. It seemed that he didn't live by the lake alone because he didn't want to go out and kill people. Instead, it was because there was something called the Earth Saint Core in the lake. He was the most talented young warrior in the world-shattering holy tribe. He was born with the ability to communicate with all the earth elements and absorb them. Therefore, he became the most important ultimate weapon in the tribe. That was why he was arranged to live by the lake and communicate with the power of the elements. 2 different life experiences clashed in his mind. He couldn't tell which was a dream and which was reality. Both of these lives were very real. However, he knew that only one of them was real. The problem was, which one was real? When he led the team to ambush Shui Lin and the others, he had been thinking about this matter. Therefore, he seemed to be absent-minded. However, the others executed the order to capture him alive perfectly. Escorting the hostages from the periphery of Mount Baral into the mountain, he looked at these monster companions who made him feel close and familiar, and he became even more confused. He looked at the quicksand in his palm again and felt a little more at ease. In any case, only this sand could bring a little peace of mind to his empty heart. He thought to himself, maybe the assassin thing was a dream, or maybe that was my previous life. He didn't know what was wrong with him. He really wanted to talk to the others. But he didn't know how to speak. He didn't want to be treated as an alien. He felt that these 2 memories of him might be a great secret. Until later, when one of his companions killed a living person in front of him, he suddenly lost control of his emotions. He killed this companion on the spot and crushed his crystal core. This companion's memory inexplicably gushed out from the exploded crystal core, turned into fragments, and returned to his body with his own sand. Only then did he know that each of his companions had the memory of being an assassin in the past. But they were different from him. They learned the elemental abilities of the world-shattering holy tribe and the techniques of assassins at the same time. Sometimes, they passed through the barrier between the Dolua world and the low-level world to carry out all kinds of assassination missions in the low-level world. This was to earn money that they thought was worthless. It was also to train themselves and obtain more power so that they could invade that world one day. So, he wasn't the only one who was once an assassin apprentice. But why do I feel that this is ridiculous? Obtaining the memory of his dead companion should have made him believe that he was the strongest genius in the world-shattering holy tribe. But in the end, no matter how he pieced together the timeline in his heart, the 2 memories couldn't overlap. Not only did the 2 lives not merge, but they became further and further apart. This obsession lasted until he and the other 17 titled rankers were called to the spacious secret room number 1. Shi Ren and the others decided to end their own lives. When they gathered all their power into their own body, Sher Shah's obsession finally erupted. That was why Sher Shah had shouted out the words he had said earlier. That's right. He had already said that he wouldn't kill anymore, but he had already killed one of his companions today. If these 17 people also chose to commit suicide, they would die because of him. I definitely won't accept it. Chapter 806. When Elder Earth and the other two entered the first secret room, they heard Sher Shah arguing with the others. Why don't you believe me? Why? This is ridiculous. This isn't real. We are all humans. We are the same as the people in your so-called low-class world. Are you all crazy? How can there be such a ridiculous thing in this world? No one can revive after death. This was Sher Shah's voice. You are the one who is crazy, right? Sher Shah. You disappoint us. What's wrong with you? Wake up. You are Sher Shah. You are the most talented warrior of our sacred clan. The elders put in so much effort for you and even let you live beside the sacred lake. How can you say something like this? I have always treated you as my most respected elder brother. This was Sher Shah's best friend, Sher Ren. A brawny man at the side said indifferently, Sher Ren, why are you talking nonsense with him? I have already told the elders. What's the use of a genius who doesn't even want to kill? Look at his ridiculous look. How can we trust him with our ability? How can he become the strongest warrior of our clan? Elder Ward said that Right Chin might have become an elemental controller. Look at Sher Shah. Even if he becomes the ultimate weapon, what can he do? In the darkness, a shadowy figure said, Sher is right. How can the broken sacred clan, which lives on killing and destruction, allow a weak and cowardly person to become the ultimate weapon? Let me do it. Shut up. Shering. What right do you have to be compared with Brother Sher Shah? Your body can't withstand our power. This is the elders' decision. It has been decided since Brother Sher Shah was born. No one can change it. However, Sher Ren spoke up for Sher Shah. You incompetent follower, do you think that with you speaking up for him, he will be able to shoulder the responsibility he should have? He is the one who got cold feet, not me who wants to replace him. That's right, Sher Ren. Wake up. Compared to us, he is just a piece of trash. So what if he is a genius? So what if he has the potential to become the ultimate weapon? He is crazy now. Do you understand? He said that the Shattering Saint tribe doesn't exist. How dare you say that we're just like those lowly mortals? How dare you say that our elemental powers are imaginary? Do you know what this means? He was denying the 10,000-year inheritance of the saints. He's insulting all of us. More and more titled rankers joined the camp of denouncing the world sand. World Blade's lips trembled. He didn't know what to say. He turned back to look at Sher Shah, who was still deep in thought, with some pain and helplessness. Then, he turned back and tried to explain something. Looking at World Blade, who was in a heated argument with the others, Sher Shah felt even worse. Actually, upon thinking about it, he did not seem to care about the lives and deaths of the others. Only World Blade was someone that he cared about. Sher Shah couldn't accept seeing him die in front of him no matter what. Brother Shisha, wake up. We don't have much time to waste. Right Chen is almost here. Look at my hand, look at my strength. Feel it for yourself. How could such a powerful force be fake? You have always been the most powerful person among us. Are you going to deny your own strength? World Blade turned around and grabbed Sher Shah's shoulder and shook him violently. Behind him, there were countless incomparably tough pitch-black blades that were flickering with a dim light as they floated in mid-air. This was World Blade's ability. He could transform his body into an incomparably tough and unique obsidian stone. Then, he could form these innumerable dark light blades that were floating in mid-air. They possessed shocking cutting ability. Sher Shah raised his hand slightly. The surging quicksand in his palm seemed to have become more intense due to the fluctuation of his emotions. World Blade placed his finger on the quicksand. The dark yellow quicksand instantly crushed his finger into pieces. Countless pitch-black powder shot out from the spot where World Blade's finger and the quicksand were mixed together. Did you see that? You didn't even use your true strength. Your quicksand can still completely destroy my obsidian finger. Brother Shershaw. As World Blade spoke, he pressed his palm against the quicksand in Shershaw's palm. He even wanted to crush his entire arm into pieces. Enough. It's really enough. This is a dream. A nightmare. Shershaw suddenly shouted and pushed World Blade to the back. He raised his head and looked at the other 16 people. He understood everyone's gaze. World Blade's disappointment, Shi Ying's jealousy, Shi's disdain, and even more people's completely incomprehensible gazes. He thought to himself that he was probably a lunatic in the eyes of these people. But how could they understand that in my eyes, all of you are also crazy, bewitched by a demon? Perhaps there was a saying that was true. In the eyes of a lunatic, he was the only normal person in this world. Elder Earth stretched out his hand gently and pushed open the door. He took the lead and entered. Elder Ni and Elder Ward followed closely behind him. The atmosphere in the first secret room changed instantly because of Elder Earth's appearance. Great Elder, did you hear what Shershaw said just now? Shi Ying's figure floated to the door unknowingly as he spoke softly. Elder Earth didn't answer him. Instead, he looked around and said in a deep voice, just now, the 8 of them were all killed in battle. Actually, I didn't want to tell you about this because I didn't want to give Shershaw too much pressure. But now, the world-shattering holy tribe has reached its final moment of life and death. Wat Chen's strength is beyond our imagination. Although World 1 and the 8 of them aren't as strong as all of you, they are still the most elite sacred warriors of our tribe. Furthermore, they have more battle experience than you titled warriors. But the fact is that they couldn't resist Wat Chen at all. Because the 8 of them were instantly killed at the same time. They couldn't even synchronize their battle memories with us. After Elder Earth finished speaking, he turned to look at Shershaw and said softly, Shershaw, I know you're kind. Although I don't understand why a weirdo like you appeared in the world-shattering holy tribe, you're indeed our last hope. Perhaps you're right. You can treat all of this as a dream. But you can't deny that even if this is a dream, he's here to kill us. If you can't become the final weapon, Wat Chen won't let any one of our tribe off. Elder Ni also said, that's right. But if you're willing to shoulder the responsibility you should bear, kill Wat Chen, and take back the Earth Saint Core, World Blade, and the others will be revived. Our world-shattering holy tribe will also be able to escape from the tragic fate of being trapped in this magic barrier forever. We'll be able to rule the low-level worlds and become one of the royal clans of the Dolua world. Although Walter really wanted to nurture Shering, nobody could deny that only Shershaw could absorb everyone's power into him. This wasn't the time to be selfish. He also said in a deep voice, we're elemental life forms. As long as the elements aren't destroyed, our lives won't be destroyed. Even if the crystal core shatters, the Earth Saint Core can nurture a new self. Shershaw. Don't hesitate any longer. Do you really want to watch all of our hopes be buried in your hands? Don't you want to become a great existence like our ancestor? I've said it before. This is an illusion. Shershaw still said stubbornly. World Blade, do it. If he's really so heartless that he's willing to see all of you die in vain, then let him be the last sinner of our tribe. Elder Earth silently closed his eyes. In the depths of his mind, he could already vaguely sense the magical wave that Wat Chen was emitting as he got closer. How powerful! That was simply an unparalleled feeling. The trembling feeling that came from the depths of his soul clearly told Elder Earth that Wate Chen's power might have already exceeded everyone's imagination. Elder Earth was not the only one who felt this. Even the other titled warriors could sense the innate disparity between them, which brought about an unrivaled sense of oppression. Wate Chen is coming. Ward's lips trembled slightly. He looked at the Earth Elder with extreme fear. Never in his wildest dreams did he think that the thief Grand Magus would become so terrifying. Both of them only had a slight contact with each other's aura, and he actually had a desire to die in his hands. Sure Shaw. Have you still not woken up? Whether it's an illusion or not, whether we're the real world a shattering holy tribe or not, is it important? What's important is that if we don't think of something, we're going to die together soon. Even if we're really just an insignificant assassin organization like you said. But Wat Chin is also here to take our lives. Elder Earth shrieked. Sher Shah looked at the three elders who were getting more and more hysterical. Then, he looked at World Blade and the rest who were sitting on the 17 platforms in the first secret room and were slowly closing their eyes. There were some things that he might never understand. Why were there only two choices, assassins and the world-shattering holy tribe? Why did they have to kill? Wasn't it better to be an ordinary person and live on their own? This familiar question made his memories surge like a tide. He seemed to have returned to his childhood when he first asked this question to his teacher. However, he knew that he couldn't find the answer. At least, there was no answer here. Boom, boom, boom. Explosions sounded one after another in the first secret room. All kinds of radiance were dispersing from the bodies of World Blade and the rest. If you don't sit on it, they're going to die for nothing. Elder Earth pointed at the largest platform in the middle of the secret room. Sher Shah turned around slowly like a walking corpse and sat down. As for Chen Guang's side, the four of them walked side by side. From time to time, one or two ambushers would fall from the ground or from the big tree above them. They looked mighty and powerful, but they were useless. They would only become nutrients for the elemental core. The closer they got to the base, the higher the frequency of the ambushes and the fiercer the attacks. At the same time, the number of people who appeared increased. In the beginning, Xan Qin and the rest were frightened and nervous. However, as time passed, the three of them were infected by Chen Guang's seemingly leisurely stroll. Chapter 807. No one sympathized with the monsters that had died in his hands. Before they became monsters, they were terrorists who deserved to die. Their hands were stained with blood. After becoming a monster, there was one more reason to kill it. This was a good thing for Chen Guang. After all, the old man was a good person with a Buddha's heart. Who would want to kill someone for no reason? The current situation was good. It was just crushing a rock. That was how calm he was. Chen Guang was also puzzled. Ever since he became the Earth Burner, absorbing other people's abilities did not change the attribute of his own ability. He also could not absorb the characteristics of other people's abilities. No matter what ability the other party had, it would be reduced to the most basic elemental attribute and absorbed by him to strengthen the Earth Burner power in his body. Forget it. The current situation was not bad. He felt that he was already very high-end. Although the name Soy Sauce Explosion wasn't a nice name, this ability was really comfortable to use. No matter how cool and awesome the enemy looked, all he had to do was use his brain, shake his fingers, blink his eyes, pretend to be mysterious and recite an incantation, and the enemy would directly self-destruct on the spot. He was like a bulldozer, crushing everything in his path without any worries. This feeling of being unrivaled was really intoxicating. He was reluctant to leave. What a pity. When the punishment world ended, this ability would disappear. He was reluctant to leave. Finally, after passing through a dense forest, the tall walls of the base appeared in front of them. Xuelin was about 200 to 300 meters ahead. She seemed to be underground. She was probably locked in a prison. Looks like it's heavily guarded. Xan Qin said. Wu Miaoan focused. There are shadows on the walls. They should be monsters hiding. Lu Fei gulped. This should be the monster's lair. Why don't Qinguang think of a way to go around and observe? Inside the base, the three elders were sitting in the conference room. In front of the three of them was the monitor. Qinguang and the three women behind him were shown. Humph. Right, Chen is still as lecherous as before. He even brought women to fight us. He will die in the hands of women sooner or later. Ward clenched his teeth. No, not sooner or later, but now. Pass down the order that everyone must do their best. Even if he dies, it doesn't matter. As long as we have enough time, the strongest warrior in the history of the Shattering Saint tribe will be born. He will defend the glory of the Saint tribe. The Earth Elder waved his hand and then glared fiercely at Qinguang on the screen. Do it. As soon as Elder Earth's voice fell, the three elders flew up together, smashed through the window and flew to the square outside. In mid-air, the three elders revealed their true forms. The Earth Elder transformed into a green raw stone with a diameter of about 100 feet. Mist lingered around him, and the raw stone was densely covered with mysterious patterns, full of vicissitudes of history. The Earth Elder's main body was called the Stone of History. Elder Ni, on the other hand, transformed into a mass of golden mud that floated in the air. At times, it would spread out horizontally and cover the entire base. At other times, it would condense together and transform into a golden armored clay giant general. Elder Ni's main body was called the heaven-swallowing living soil. As for Third Elder Ward, his round body was about 70 to 80 feet in diameter. As he floated in the air, most of his body was azure blue like the ocean, while the other half was a mixture of green and yellow. His main body rotated slowly, and white mist lingered around him. He looked like a miniature Earth. Elder Ward's main body was called the Primordial Star. These three elders represented the ultimate evolution of three types of Earth elemental powers. Even though they were imaginary existences created by the punishment realm, their true level was close to that of an Earth ruler. Perhaps they were insignificant in the endless realm of the gods, but this was only a low-level world created by Qinguang's will under the heavenly Holy Grail. When the monsters in the square saw the three elders reveal their true forms, they were so overwhelmed by Qinguang's mental wave that they were almost suffocating. In the huge square, the crowd was stirred up. Roars rose into the sky, and the ground shook. Even Ouyang Tianqing, who was hiding 100 meters underground, felt the tremors. Three loud booms rang out. The three elders' main bodies fell to the ground, and a buzzing sound suddenly rang out. About 7 to 8 kilometers in the sky, a huge hexagram magic formation that was more than 10 kilometers wide appeared out of nowhere. It almost covered the entire sky. Rays of golden light poured down from the magic formation like a dense drizzle. The drizzle fell on the World Shatterer warriors, and each of them seemed to be plated with a layer of golden light. When the rain-like radiance covered the ground, another golden magic formation gradually appeared on the ground. It was the same size as the hexagram in the sky. The drizzle of light poured down and fell on the magic formation on the ground. Dense mist slowly surged up from the magic formation on the ground and rose into the sky. The earth elemental power flowed between the two magic formations in a continuous cycle. The two magic formations, one above and one below, resonated with each other and formed an independent space in the punishment realm. It was mysterious and unfathomable. The warriors of the World Shatterer Holy Tribe were excited, but their expressions changed. They were heartbroken and touched. The three elders had used the sacred tribe's forbidden skill. No matter how the battle ended, the three elders' realms would regress. They might even lose their warrior titles. Endless Reincarnation Wheel. That's the Endless Reincarnation Wheel. Oh my God. Brothers and sisters. The sacred tribe is at the final moment of life and death. We have no way out. We must kill Right Chin. We must take back the sacred core. That's right. For the elders. For the sacred tribe. The hustle and bustle outside was blocked by the thick walls of secret room number 1. Sher Shah was still sitting cross-legged on the platform, but the other 17 titled warriors had completely disappeared. Above his head, 17 rays of light that represented different attributes revolved around him. They looked like planets orbiting a star to form a galaxy. But strangely, there was nothing in the center of the galaxy. If Qin Guang was here, with his highest earth elemental senses, he might be able to see that there wasn't really nothing above Sher Shah's head. There was a formless, colorless, miniature black hole. Compared to the other World Shatterer Holy Tribe warriors, Sher Shah was born with a chaotic body. This chaotic body was the same attribute as the crystal core of the Earth chaotic ones. What's going on? Looking up at the two enormous hexagram arrays between heaven and earth, Exa and Qin and the others were at a loss. The hexagram array was beautiful, but it contained endless murderous intent. It made the three mortals tremble from the bottom of their souls. Chen Guang's expression didn't change. He activated his paragon powers and flew into the air. At the same time, the ground began to move. In the center of the array, soil suddenly emerged. The soil grew naturally like a plant. In an instant, it formed a dome above Exa, Qin and the others, protecting them inside. 3 beautiful ladies, you stay here. Next, it's Right Chen's job. Chen Guang turned around and smiled at the 3 of them. For safety's sake, he'd even added several layers of attributes to the dome. The Shaker's endless regeneration allowed the dome to quickly recover no matter how much damage it received. The Shredder's absolute sturdiness made the dome indestructible. The Paragon's field of force could repel and weaken an enemy's attack before it even reached them. The Destroyer's disintegration. Any attack that wasn't strong enough couldn't even get close. It would disintegrate into the most basic elemental energy. The most incredible was the inverse chaos power that Chen Guang had added. It had the same origin as the chaos ones, but its mechanism was completely opposite. In human science, a black hole with no exit wasn't the end. On the other side of a black hole was a white hole with no exit. What he'd used was the power of a white hole that only the Marmalade Exploder could control. Perhaps it was because the power he had unleashed was too profound, too complex, and the rules were getting higher and higher, causing this seemingly unremarkable dome to instantly possess an inconceivable realm. There were even faint rumbles of thunder on it, and with each rumble of thunder, space-time cracks would appear indistinctly. Even Lioli couldn't help but roar in his heart. Enough! Didn't I just remind you? I told you not to use too much force and kill your hostage. Are you blind? Can't you see that space is about to collapse? This world of punishment can't take the power you've put on that pile of dirt. Chen Guang glared at her and quickly put it away. Sorry. I was too pretentious. I thought I wouldn't be able to use this power for long, so I wanted to have some fun. Won't be able to use it for long, my ass. What? Nothing. You better hurry up. These lowly elemental creatures have more or less understood that they don't have a chance. If they kill their hostage first, you'll be in big trouble. Chen Guang nodded. He quickly turned around and waved at the dome. "I'll be right back." Looking at the colorful dome that seemed to contain the entire world, he was curious. After all, this was the old man's power. Should he touch it and see how powerful it was? Bang! Just as he touched it, he was sent flying by the dome that seemed to break through the limits of space and time in the world of punishment. He flew towards the tall walls of the base like a cannonball. Elder 2 and the other 2 who had transformed into their original forms to control the endless reincarnation will array were completely speechless. The dome that Chen Guang had casually created was within the array that the 3 of them were controlling. How could they not sense it? This is the origin of the world. This is the end of the earth element. This isn't a power that the Doluo world can take. What exactly happened to Right Chen's body? Elder 2 finally lost his composure and screamed. Elder Ni cried bitterly. He's not an elemental controller. He's basically a god. No, this pile of dirt that he created is the ancestral god of our earth element. This isn't the end, this is the starting point. Volcanoes erupted on the planet that Walter had transformed into. In an instant, it changed from an Earth-like planet to a desolate Mars filled with volcanic craters. It seems like a world of Earth element is being nurtured in that pile of dirt. I really want to die in there. Chapter 808. Ward. Wake up. That's right, Chen's sorcery. He's trying to kill us. The Earth Elder gnashed his teeth and roared furiously from the stone of history that he had transformed into. Ward's voice came from the primordial star. He sounded hesitant and unwilling. Great Elder, I can't hold on any longer. The Earth Elder's roar came from the heaven-devouring growing soil again. If you're already like this, the others will be in even more danger. As expected, the thousands of soldiers in the World Shatterer were rooted to the ground. They couldn't even budge, let alone muster up their fighting spirit. Ward shouted from the primordial star, "Why is this happening? Why? If we don't think of something, we'll surrender without a fight." The 3 elders of the World Shatterer were indeed unlucky. If Qin Guang had only brought the 4 abilities of the Earth Chaos Being into the punishment realm, he might have been in for a tough battle. It was hard to tell who would emerge victorious in the end. However, the Earth Chaos Being was instantly killed by the unstoppable slicing force when the space-time tunnel closed, leaving behind half of its crystal core. The tragic fate of the World Shatterer was destined. Although the Earth Chaos Being's name wasn't very elegant, his realm was truly high. Chen Guang was like a Tyrannosaurus Rex that had stepped into a sheep pen. He was tyrannical, bully, and unreasonable. Before entering, he had gone through a tough battle with the Earth Family Bucket. It could only be said that it was worth it. The amount of sweat, blood, and tears he had put in was equivalent to the amount of return he would receive. Even though the punishment realm was supposed to punish him, it actually followed the principle of how much effort he put in and how much he would receive. He was the only one who could hold on after fighting so fiercely against the Earth Family Bucket Barrel. It was impossible to count how many times his body was shattered and how many times he was on the verge of death. Although he could recover every time, the pain and bitterness were too numerous to count. At this moment, he was like a fruit planted with blood and sweat in spring. Now that it was autumn, it was time to reap the fruits. Sorry, all of you have to die. Twisting his body slightly in the air, Chen Guang's back slammed into the thick wall of the World Shatterer. With a loud bang, the wall collapsed. In the next moment, he appeared in the sky above the plaza. Below him were thousands of members of the World Shatterer. There were too many species, and their types were too complicated. In any case, when Meng Chao looked at them, he found that they were all over the place, and it looked like a monster paradise. Chen Guang shuddered and quickly put on a serious look. However, he found that these guys seemed to be in a daze and did not move for a long time. Do what? Empty fort stratagem. Are you trying to scare me? He did not understand what was going on. That's not right. It seems that along the way, I've been killing more and more mutated monsters and absorbing more and more elemental crystal cores. It seems like I'm constantly getting stronger. He was in the middle of the battle, so he didn't feel anything. However, judging from the reactions of these monsters, it seemed like they couldn't handle the aura that he was releasing. Forget it, this is also good. Let them die a more straightforward death. On the other side, the three elders saw Chen Guang's eyes narrowed. It seemed like he was about to use his ultimate move. They finally made up their minds. Let's shake the endless reincarnation wool together. Let everyone wake up. Okay. Let's go all out. The three of them said in unison. Immediately, the three of them mobilized the elemental power in their bodies and formed a resonance. In the blink of an eye, a thunderous roar sounded in the hearts of all the monsters. Kill! 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 All warriors of the world-shattering holy tribe, listen up. The final moment of our holy tribe's life and death has arrived. Either we are exterminated, or we kill Right Chin. Take back the Saint cores. The three elders transformed into their original forms and let out a resonance. As expected, the effect was outstanding. All the monsters who were in a state of confusion instantly woke up. In the next second, these monsters gritted their teeth and soared into the sky. Countless strange attacks flew toward Chen Guang, who was in midair. At the same time, the historical stone that Elder Earth had transformed into said in a deep voice, Right Chin. Do you want to kill your friends? If you don't want them to be safe and sound, you'd better surrender obediently. Chen Guang ignored the attacks of these ants and turned to look at a corner near the base. He already knew that Xuelin and the others were down there. He chuckled. Of course I don't want them to die, but can you kill them? As soon as he finished speaking, his eyes flashed. Two energies of unknown power shot out from his pupils and pierced the ground above the dungeon where Xuelin and the others were imprisoned. A loud rumbling sound rang out. In the next instant, the earth trembled. The huge underground prison actually broke through the ground, and the entire prison floated up from the ground, suspended in the air. The solid walls of the dungeon flickered with a glow similar to the dome that Chen Guang had set up outside. Yes, he had used the supercomposite power again. I'm sorry, but you can't hurt them at all. With a wave of Chen Guang's hand, the dungeon that was suspended in the air flew out and landed near the dome that was protecting Xian Qin and the other two. Xuelin and the others were completely dumbfounded. They looked at the destroyed base and thought that they were in a nightmare. Chen Guang was satisfied when he heard the notification from the Heavenly Holy Grail. Hostage rescue successful. Current number of rescued, 54. Number of rescued, 0. Number of dead hostages, 1. Remaining mission time, 18 hours 53 minutes 7 seconds. No. Impossible. The three elders of the world of destruction exclaimed in unison. How could they have expected that the hostages that they had gone through so much trouble to get would be taken away so easily? Oh right, you guys keep talking about the Holy Core. What is that? Without any worries in his heart, Chen Guang relaxed and started gossiping again. However, the one who answered him this time was not a member of the world of destruction but Azure. Do you want to know? Haven't you eaten so much already? Damn! Do they want to kill me and eat my gallstones? Azure, did you give the elemental crystal core a new name, gallstones? You might as well continue to call it fruit candy. At this moment, Chen Guang's gaze when he looked at these monsters was even weirder. Did he really think that the punishment realm had given you guys a tragic fate? But in the end, you guys wanted to kill me and dig out my heart. Uncle could tolerate it, but Aunt couldn't. 10 lands 8 wastelands black tortoise sky-flipping seal. Perhaps his naming talent was off the charts, but after Chen Guang shouted, a sun-like halo appeared above his head. This halo instantly expanded and left his head. It flew into the sky and turned into a pagoda in midair. This pagoda expanded in the sky and covered a radius of several hundred acres in an instant. Then, it pressed down from the top. The World of Destruction Warriors' attacks on Chen Guang landed on the base of this pagoda. At the same time, almost 1,000 attacks blasted the pagoda. There were energy attacks and mutated monsters that had turned into weapons. Loud booms rose and fell as dazzling rays of light spread out like ripples. For a moment, it was as if thousands of fireworks had bloomed in the sky. But it was all in vain. The pagoda pressed down with unstoppable momentum. Although it was slow, it was unstoppable, like a road roller pressing down on a basket full of eggs. In the end, the pagoda slammed into the 3 elders' bodies. The 3 elders' bodies continued to be pressed into the ground, and the pagoda continued pressing down until the underground prison was pressed against the ground. Just a little more and it would shatter. With a thought, Chen Guang dispersed the pagoda. At this point, most of the stone of history had sunk into the ground, and only half of the primordial star was left on the ground. The heaven-swallowing living soil had flattened itself and wasn't suppressed much. Chen Guang had only used one move, but even the hexagram array on the endless reincarnation wheel had dimmed a little. The 3 World of Destruction elders were overwhelmed with shock. Over 1,000 World of Destruction warriors who attacked Right Chin with their true bodies were all killed by this one move. Not a single one was left alive. As for those who had used energy attacks, they were slightly better off. They were only gravely injured and barely hanging on. The primordial star that Walter had transformed into was riddled with holes and was in a state of desolation. His voice carried a lingering fear. What exactly is this forbidden spell? Elder Earth shouted angrily. You're asking me. How would I know? Stop talking nonsense. Quickly activate the reincarnation wheel. Elder Ni interrupted the two and reminded them. With a single move and a hostage in his hands, Chen Guang was in a great mood at this moment. It was so much so that he even started to feel elated. However, he soon recovered from his daze. He's still in the punishment realm. Although he had no idea what happened to cause the difficulty of his mission to drop, he still couldn't let his guard down. He had to put on a good show. He hurriedly tried to communicate with the elemental cores left behind by the World of Destruction warriors. As usual, he sensed the existence of over 500 elemental cores without much effort. He summoned them in his mind and opened his palm to wait for the harvest. What's going on? There's no movement. After waiting for a dozen seconds, not a single crystal core flew over. When he looked over, he immediately understood what was going on. It turned out that the World Shatterer warriors, who had been shattered by his pagoda and had their souls disintegrated, were recovering rapidly under the nourishment of the golden light rain falling from the 6-pointed star array in the sky. Not only did they recover their bodies, but even their shattered souls were constantly being fused back together. Full health on the spot. So cool. Chen Guang looked up at the sky and then down at the ground. He carefully analyzed the golden light rain cycle between the two arrays and immediately understood. No wonder he couldn't absorb the crystal cores. These guys actually had the ability to revive in the energy-enclosed environment formed by the two arrays. This was even crazier than his own regenerative ability. Chapter 809. Ha ha ha. Do you think you've got it in your hands? Right, Chen? You're not the only one who has learned a new forbidden spell. Have a taste of my race's forbidden spell, Endless Reincarnation Wheel. You won't be able to kill any of us in this spell. Seeing that the Endless Reincarnation Wheel was effective, Earth Elder purposely shouted arrogantly. It seemed brainless, but it was actually to boost morale. At the same time, Earth Elder secretly directed his mental power towards the first secret room. Before he even got close, his mental power was suddenly devoured by an invisible force and he lost contact with it. Earth Elder nodded to himself. This meant that Sher Shah was about to succeed. Persevere a little longer and let the final weapon give the arrogant right chin a head-on blow. In an instant, the heavily injured or dead warriors of the World Shatterer had completely recovered. They were no different from before. For a moment, the warriors of the World Shatterer were in high spirits. They felt that they were invincible in the Endless Reincarnation Wheel. They had an immortal body and an indestructible soul. The forbidden spell was indeed worthy of its reputation. With the support of the Endless Reincarnation Wheel, even if Right Chen's strength made him seem like an ant trying to shake a tree, as long as he persevered, he would be able to exhaust him to death. He didn't even need to use his last drop of blood. He just needed to persevere for a little longer and wait for Sher Shah to come out. The rest would be left to him. After recovering their vitality, the World Destruction Warriors once again charged into the air like moths to a flame. This time, they gave it their all. Since they were not going to die, and they could be revived after they died, they might as well use the suicidal method of overdrafting their vitality from the very beginning. Seeing these World Shatterer monsters charging at him crazily, Chen Guang was in a dilemma. Previously, he had used a pagoda. What should he use this time? In any case, I'm a famous Grand Magister now. If I use the same trick over and over again, won't it damage my noble image? What's going on? You're still thinking of tricks? Azure, who had been watching the show, couldn't hold it in anymore and cursed. Chen Guang nodded seriously. Of course. A Grand Sorcerer has to have the dignity of a Grand Sorcerer. Speaking of which, it's my fault. Most of the novels I read in the past were mainly about the cities. I'm not very familiar with Xuanhuan or Western fantasy. Earth roar. Suddenly, he had an idea. With another wave of his hand, countless wooden oxen and mud horses appeared behind him and charged forward. When they encountered the warriors of the World Shatterer who were in midair, the wooden oxen and mud horses also leaped up and collided with the warriors of the World Shatterer in midair. The effect of this move was even more obvious. After it was executed, the thousands of World Shatterer warriors were heavily injured again. They fell to the ground like a meteor shower and shattered completely again. Luli, are you sure this isn't a move from the Legend of the Three Kingdoms? Are you going to use useless heaven and earth next time? Chen Guang silently shook his head. It's fine if heaven and earth are useless. After all, I'm only an earth Grand Magus. I don't cultivate both lightning and earth. There's no use in the world, but there's the 8 trigrams. I can't imitate it. Please, be a little more serious. Okay. No matter how Luli complained in his heart, Xan Qin, Xuelin, and the others who had been protected by the dome and the underground prison were shocked speechless by his unprecedented fighting style. If they didn't know that he was Chen Guang, if they didn't know that they were just ordinary earthlings, they would have thought that they had accidentally entered a fantasy novel. Ambush formation. It was the familiar move from the Legend of the Three Kingdoms again. As he shouted, countless stone soldiers holding spears, swords, and shields and riding stone horses emerged from the ground. These stone soldiers didn't have real lives or souls. They were just human forms formed by Chen Guang's manipulation of the elemental power. They were like real creatures with the ability to move. They didn't have consciousness or souls. They only had one thought, which was to follow the summoner's will and destroy everything that the summoner wanted to destroy. Their bodies were made of ordinary soil. However, after Chen Guang bestowed the earth elemental power, the soil would either harden and become as hard as iron, or become a semi-solid gelatinous substance that possessed great explosive power and elasticity. In the next moment, the group of stone soldiers and the 1,000 undying warriors of the World Breaker clashed. For a moment, the sky was filled with battle cries as both sides fought fiercely. The warriors of the World Breaker had an undying body and soul, but Chen Guang's ambush formation didn't have any life. Both sides suddenly entered a state of stalemate. Seeing this, Chen Guang thought that it wasn't a good idea to continue like this. Although the old man was a marmalade exploder and had almost endless elemental power, it wasn't a good idea to always be stalled by these weaklings. I have to make a big move. Did you hear clearly what the chief shouted just now? Xuelin leaned against the iron door of the dungeon, her hands grabbing onto the iron bars that had been strengthened to the point of being indestructible. Her face was filled with confusion as she muttered. Beside her, a young special agent from the Guangding General Headquarters, who was also a former special agent from the Security Bureau, said doubtfully, "Earth Howl, an ambush formation. It sounds familiar." Xuelin patted her head. Did I encounter too many strange things today that my brain is muddled? Maybe, probably, not. The young man didn't know how to answer. Then, you mean that the chief is using a trick from the game? Leader, you must have heard wrongly. The director is invincible throughout the ages. How could he use the tricks in the game like a child's play? Xuelin nodded. That must be the case. Let's just listen. On the other side, Liuli couldn't stand it anymore. It wasn't that she thought he might go overboard. In fact, Liuli also knew that no matter how Chen Guang played, it didn't matter. In a sense, he had already completed this punishment realm. However, you are the savior of the heavenly Holy Grail, and now you have become the Earth Howl Exploder in the Endless God realm, whose rank is not much different from that of a God Emperor. Playing like this is really damaging to the dignity of the God realm. I'm warning you. If you dare to use the trick from the legend of the heroes of the Three Kingdoms again, I will definitely let you go to the punishment realm of the Anal King Cup next time. And it's in the One-Line Heavens realm. Big sister, I was wrong. Don't mess around. I'll use my trump card right now and steam those 3 old monsters. This formation of theirs is quite powerful. They turned this part of the world into a closed space. No matter how I kill these low-level monsters, their souls and energy are firmly locked in this closed space. If I don't destroy the formation, I really won't be able to kill them. Liuli nodded. It's good that you can see through it yourself. I was worried that you really needed me to remind you. Seeing that he was serious, Liuli didn't complain anymore. After all, this guy looked quite serious. Dear Mingguo tried to beat around the bush. I think he still has some tricks up his sleeve. Liuli didn't believe it. That's impossible, right? On the other side, Chen Guang suddenly raised his hands high as if he was worshipping a god. 2 extremely thick earth elemental forces that he deliberately created gushed out from his palms and soared into the sky. They combined into one in the sky and condensed into a ball of air. It spun wildly in the air and became bigger and bigger. In an instant, it expanded to a diameter of more than 200 feet. This was indeed a big move. The momentum of its appearance was scary enough. Liuli turned to dear Mingguo and said proudly, "See, I told you that he is very imposing when he is serious." Yes, yes, yes. Your Chen Guang is the most powerful. On the other side, Chen Guang opened his eyes. The ball in the air suddenly exploded. A giant figure made of greenish-black rocks suddenly appeared in the air and smashed toward the ground. Appear. Obelisk's giant god warrior. Lioli was furious. And I'm the sky dragon of Osiris. On the other side, Xuelin had seen this old anime before. The male lead was called Muto Rand, no, Muto Games. The title of the anime was Yu-Gi-Oh! She also stared and muttered, "What the hell? And I'm the winged dragon of the sun god." The young man next to her didn't understand. "Leader, what's that?" Xuelin covered her face. The three phantasmal gods from the anime Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! The young man said that it sounded familiar. Then the question was, what kind of world was this? As a loyal LOL player, apart from racing and games, Luffy used to be a skilled 2D beautiful girl warrior. She had already explained the power of the three phantasmal gods and three phantasmal demons to Axian Qin and Wu Miaowan, two completely confused Lolita deputy directors. On the other side, on Chen Guang's side, the huge dark green giant that he had summoned smashed into the ground, crushing dozens of world-shatter monsters to death. At the same time, it also crushed a bunch of stoneman soldiers that had been summoned by the ambush squad. The giant god warrior slowly straightened its body. Its incomparably strong shoulders were about 10 feet wide, and its body made of dark green rocks was emitting a faint green light. The extremely strong rock muscles made the giant god warrior seem indestructible. The shoulder armor and back that were full of sharp thorns added an even more ferocious and tyrannical aura. The giant god warrior looked around, then looked up to the sky and roared. A dinosaur-like scream came from its mouth, as if it was declaring its sovereignty. Chen Guang was very satisfied with his work. He had spent a little more time just now to recall the image of the giant god warrior that had left a deep impression on him in this anime. The result of the finished product was very perfect. It must be out of print in the world of figurines. Not only can my huge figurine move, but it can also fight. After the scream, the giant god warrior bent down and waved its arm. With a horizontal sweep, be it the world-shatter monsters or Chen Guang's own stoneman soldiers, they were all crushed upon contact and destroyed upon contact. The expressions of the three elders of the world-shatterer changed. This was only an earth elemental summon that Right Chin had summoned, but why was it like the dome from before? It gave off a profound and unfathomable feeling, as if there was a hidden world within. However, it was also different from the dome. The aura from the dome felt like an endless abyss, but it also contained boundless vitality. It was both the end and the beginning of the earth elemental. But no matter where this giant named Obelisk stood, the aura that surged out of its body only made people feel that it was destruction, the end of all things in the world. However, they didn't have much time to analyze the difference in strength between the two sides. In the blink of an eye, the giant god warrior had already rushed in front of the primordial star that Walter had transformed into. The giant god warrior bent down and hugged the planet with both arms. With a loud roar, the primordial star was pulled out of the ground in the next instant. The giant god warrior hugged the huge sphere and raised it high above its head. It looked very much like the World Cup Champions World Cup. "Elder Earth, Elder Ni, save me!" Walter screamed, and the planet that he had transformed into began to tremble violently. It wasn't that he was struggling, but that he had lost control of his body purely due to extreme fear. Chapter 8:10. The giant god warrior gradually increased the strength of its embrace around the primordial star. Cracks gradually appeared on the already battered planet, and streaks of dark red light seeped out of the cracks. It was unknown whether it was blood or magma. On the other side, Elder Earth and Elder Ni's true bodies saw that the situation was far from good, and they soared into the air in an attempt to save Wang Zhong. The cone-shaped stone of history changed its angle in the air and aimed its tip at the giant soldier god. Then, it flew over with a loud rumble and crashed into the giant soldier god with a heavy sense of history. As for the heaven-devouring living soil that could change its shape freely, it transformed into a large net and spun in the air towards the giant soldier god. It wasn't just the two of them. The other world-shattering monsters that were fighting Qinguang's stone soldiers also put down their opponents. Even if they were to be beheaded or stabbed in the heart, they all turned around to save Ward. The endless reincarnation will needed the three elders to control it together. If Ward died first, the formation would collapse, and the others would die without a doubt. As long as they could save Ward, they could be revived even if they died. Whether it was for themselves or for their entire race, the world-shattering monsters knew what was important. In fact, if they had known earlier that Qinguang was so powerful, the three elders would have thought of more ways to protect themselves even if they still used the endless reincarnation wheel. They would have even set up another defensive magic formation underground. They wouldn't have exposed their true bodies so openly. Who would have thought that this guy would be able to lift Ward, who was not weak, like a ball just by summoning a giant divine weapon of obelisk? But Ward did not have the slightest ability to resist. In an instant, the stone of history that Elder Earth had transformed into crashed into the giant soldier god's chest. The giant net formed by Elder Ni's heaven-devouring living soil pounced onto the giant soldier god's back like an octopus, and swept up its torso as if it had eyes of its own. It seemed that Elder Ni was planning on sticking to the giant soldier god's arms and forcefully tearing them apart, which were determined to crush the primordial star. As for the attacks of the other world-shattering monsters, most of them landed on the giant god warriors in 2s and 3s. Sparks flew and dust rose, but it was actually useless. Originally, the ordinary soldiers of Worldbreaker shouldn't have been so weak. However, the 9 captains, World 1 to World 9, had all died at Qinguang's hands. Although World 11 to World 100 were considered captains, their true strength was far inferior to the 9 captains. In addition, the damned titled warriors were stronger than the 9 captains. However, in order to completely activate the world-shattering Holy Tribe's ultimate weapon, the World Sand, 17 of the 18 had died and 1 survived. If it weren't for the fact that Qinguang could roughly see the memory fragments of the world-shattering Holy Tribe's warriors each time he killed and the conflicts between him and the world-shattering Holy Tribe, Qinguang was certain that there wasn't a single good person in this vicious assassin organization. Every so-called monster was actually an assassin who had more or less killed many people. Qinguang almost sympathized with these people. Forget it, it's time to put an end to them. In their worldview created by the punishment realm, he had become a thief who had stolen their sacred cores. It was ridiculous, and he felt even more uncomfortable. To be honest, although the attacks of the others were useless, the desperate charge of the 2 great elders, as well as Walter's frantic struggle when his desire to live erupted, really caused some trouble for the insufferably arrogant giant god. The collision with the stone of history caused it to stagger a step back. The giant net formed by the heaven-devouring living soil also caused a lot of trouble for its arms, greatly reducing its pressure on the primordial star. Unfortunately, the giant god warrior was ultimately a killing weapon personally made by the Marmalade Bomber. It was born for destruction, and the level suppression made the World Shatter Holy Tribe members feel despair. Although it had no soul or emotions, the natural dignity of a high-ranked elemental creature was innately accompanied by the elemental power in its body. After being provoked by these lowly creatures in all sorts of ways, it exploded on its own without Qinguang's orders. After regaining its footing, a strange magical formation that even Qinguang couldn't understand appeared beneath the giant god warrior's feet, becoming a formation within the endless reincarnation wheel. Qinguang watched with great interest. It seemed that he still had many areas to explore and learn about the path of the earth element. Although his level was high enough, he still had to learn how to use the earth element. He wasn't wrong. Although his level was extremely high, he had never tried to figure out how to use the earth element. He was purely relying on his instincts and imagination, and had never systematically learned how to use elemental power. To put it simply, the more daring one was, the more productive one was. To put it more simply, he was like a 3-year-old child holding a piece of plasticine, and the child could mold it into whatever shape he wanted. No matter what he molded, the plasticine was actually a C4 explosive, which could easily kill dozens or even hundreds of adult men if thrown into a crowd. That was pretty much it. He had a heavy weapon in his hand, and he could unleash the power of the heavy weapon, but it was really impossible for him to use it more intricately. Chen Guang was satisfied with the composite dome, the earth fury, the ambush formation, and even this giant god warrior. But in Lu Li's eyes, it was an extremely crude and primitive way of using elemental power. To put it simply, it was child's play. But he was still inexperienced, after all. It was already not bad that he could achieve this in such a short period of time. At the very least, it showed that he was very talented and smart. Just like the current giant god warrior. Although its power was unbelievably weak when compared to the endless divine realm, its level was actually quite high. As soon as the array beneath the giant soldier god's feet appeared, a shadow appeared out of thin air on its already extremely thick arms. This shadow spread from its fists all the way down, covering its entire body in an instant. It was a full-body armor. Chen Guang rolled his eyes. If it weren't for the spikes on the guy's shoulders and back that ruined the image, the armor on this guy was clearly the Western-style armor that had left a painful memory for him. Yes, that's right. It was a sunny, no, a lonely and ruthless night. He was almost caught by Deputy Director Han in Teacher Zhuo's office. In the end, he hid in the former counselor's armor and luckily escaped the disaster, but he was almost suffocated to death. According to Lu Li, everything in the punishment realm was inextricably linked to the thoughts in the depths of his soul. He never expected that the night when he saw the void being refreshed would leave such a deep impression on him. On the other side, the moment the shadow of the armor of the giant god warrior appeared, it broke free from the giant net made of the heaven-swallowing living soil. The stone of history crashed into it again, but it could not shake the giant god warrior at all. As for the other ant-like monsters, they became insignificant ants scratching an itch on the body of the giant beast. The mysterious array below the Colossus' feet granted the shadow of the armor, which seemed to carry a mysterious enhancement effect. Just like in the game, the strength and the defense ability of the Colossus had been significantly improved. The cracks on the primordial star increased rapidly again. Elder Ward's life was hanging by a thread. At this moment, the ground shook, and an 8-story building not far from the giant god warrior exploded. A figure no different from an average person rose from the smoke and dust. Ward immediately felt the force that was about to crush him lighten. He turned his thoughts and saw the world's sand floating in the air, shrouded in mist. He cried out in ecstasy. "You're finally out. I'm saved." Chen Guang turned to look at the young man who suddenly appeared. He raised his brows and thought to himself, the saying that villains die because they talk too much seems to be an unchanging truth. In this realm of punishment, he had accidentally put himself in the role of a villain and said a few more words of nonsense. After summoning Obelisk's giant soldier god, he, as the strongest combat power, was obsessed with new moves and watching the giant soldier god show off. He did not expect that they actually had a trump card. It seems like they've been stalling for time. This young man does have some skills. In terms of power, this young man seemed to be on par with the destroyer he met previously, but his realm felt very similar to that of a chaos being. But this is not enough, far from enough. If I didn't become a marmalade exploder, I might really be defeated by this young man. As for now, saying it will only make you feel more despair. It's a pity that you can't even defeat my little brother. Even the real Earth Chaos being was cursed to death by the old man's protagonist Halo. What makes you think you can fight with me? The three elders of the World Destruction Guild were completely unaware. They felt that they finally had the chance to turn the tables. They were moved to tears. All the hard work was worth it. First, they used hundreds of years to adjust the elemental attributes of the newly born lives in the clan, hoping to cultivate the ultimate weapon with unlimited devouring ability. They finally succeeded 20 years ago. Then, they spent another 20 years to find the other 17 so-called titled warriors who were most compatible with the world's sand. In fact, it was just to fuse the power of these 18 people into the world's sand, completely activating his ability and obtaining the ultimate weapon. Now, it seemed that all the hard work was worth it. This was simply a perfect creation. There's hope for the revival of our holy clan. With this perfect ultimate weapon, what's there to be afraid of? The three elders of the World Destruction Guild couldn't be blamed for being frogs at the bottom of a well. In the hearts of ants, there seemed to be no difference between an elephant and a blue whale. Anyway, to them, they were all equally big and boundless. The world sand first looked at the giant god warrior, then turned his gaze to Qinguang who was hovering in midair. Unlike other frogs at the bottom of a well, as a frog standing outside the well, he could understand the gap between him and the other party. Chapter 8:11. Not to mention the so-called thief, Right Chin, he wasn't even a match for the tall stone monster below. However, in his memory, this person wasn't called Right Chin. He was called Qinguang. He wasn't a thief who stole the holy core, nor was he a great wizard of the Dolua world. He was the same as himself and everyone else here, a mortal. But why was he able to use such magic? Also, was the power in my body real or fake? If my power was real, then his magic should be real as well. If my power was fake, then his power should be fake too. But why was he able to kill the others so easily? Just how high was his level? What do I have to do to make him stop? Why must he be enemies with us, and why must we be enemies with him? What kind of irresolvable conflict is there between him and the world of destruction? Ever since he became sensible, this was the first time Sher Shah felt regret in his heart. He regretted never asking about the organization's matters in the past. He didn't know what enemies the organization had, and he couldn't understand why Huaxia would suddenly go to war with the world of destruction and send over a hunting team of over 50 people. Why was this young man called Qinguang here? Although he had become the ultimate weapon that the world of destruction holy tribe had high hopes for, Sher Shah's perplexity didn't lessen at all. Instead, it increased. He even started to think hard about how to make this man called Qinguang leave this place. It didn't matter even if he took his companions with him. If I know the cause and effect of this matter, I can probably think of a way to calm him down and have a good talk, right? Why did they have to kill each other? Any misunderstandings and conflicts can be resolved through communication. Sher Shah. Why are you still in a daze? Hurry up and do it. Walter suppressed his ecstasy when he saw that Sher Shah didn't save him immediately after coming out. He shouted desperately in his heart. On the other side, the giant god warrior continued to compress the primordial star after a short pause. If there was life on the primordial star, the people on this pitiful planet would be witnessing a scene of the end of the world that made them despair. Of course, this was impossible. With Ward's abilities, forming the shape of a planet was already his limit. If he could nurture life, he wouldn't be a lowly earth elemental life form. There was no other way. He could only save them first. Sher Shah threw away the messy thoughts in his mind and flew towards the giant soldier god. He didn't have the guts to provoke Qinguang who was floating in the sky. He could understand Qinguang's current state of being a cat toying with a mouse. He knew that as long as Chen Guang was willing, everything would be over in an instant. As the world's sand approached, the giant god warrior's pressure on the primordial star grew weaker. There was no other reason other than the fact that the ultimate weapon, the world's sand, had restrained the power of the giant god soldier. "Lad, if this is all you've got, it's not enough." Chen Guang didn't panic at all. Instead, he hoped that this person could stimulate more of the giant god soldier's potential. That way, he would be able to see more ways to use the earth element from the giant god soldier's counterattack. For example, the formation within a formation under its feet was very interesting. As a Grand Magus, it was embarrassing to learn how to use elemental power from his own summoned creature. Finally, the giant god soldier was obstructed again and again. Even though it didn't have any emotions, its dignity as a high-level creature was being belittled, and it subconsciously retaliated with more power. Chance. Run. Ward was overjoyed when he saw that the giant god warrior's attention was temporarily diverted. The side of the primordial star that was facing the giant god warrior spewed out boiling red magma in unison. It looked like an active volcano eruption during the destruction of a planet. Although the magma couldn't break through the giant god soldier's armor, it provided a considerable recoil force for the primordial star. The world sand, who was already prepared for battle, took the opportunity to speed up, and his body exploded. His body suddenly disappeared and turned into a cloud of yellow dust that filled the sky. He pounced at the giant god soldier's arms. In the blink of an eye, the giant god soldier's arms were covered in a thick layer of yellow sand. It looked like armor, but it was actually formed from the world sand's body. Not only did it not provide any protection, but it also forcefully absorbed the power from the giant god soldier's arms, solidifying them and restricting the giant god soldier's movements. The giant god soldier roared furiously, and the formation beneath its feet became even brighter. Outside the formation's boundary, a circle of complicated vein patterns that even Chen Guang couldn't understand appeared. This increased the diameter of the formation within the formation by another half. Accompanied by the sound of cracking, cracks first appeared on the binding armor that the world's sand had transformed into. Then, it shattered with a loud bang. Like an exploding vase, it turned into countless fragments that scattered in all directions. The giant soldier god broke free from the binding again. However, the primordial star had already taken advantage of this delay and shot out like a missile with the recoil force of a volcanic eruption. Once Walter escaped, Elder Earth's Stone of History and Elder Ni's heaven-devouring living soil hurriedly left the battle. As long as they didn't die and the endless reincarnation will wasn't broken, the others could be revived after death. The world-shattering Saint tribe would be invincible. The giant god soldier lifted its leg to give chase, but the world's sand that had exploded into fragments disintegrated into dust in midair. Then, it pounced at its legs and condensed into a pair of shackles. It was strange. The world sand's true size was no different from an ordinary person, but after disintegrating into dust, the weight of the sand was much larger than a human's. The feet of the giant god were blocked, and it staggered a little. When it shattered the shackles again, the three elders had already fled far away. No one knew what they did, but after they escaped, they smashed the ground together and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. With a thought, Chen Guang grasped the three's escape route. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. They thought that he wouldn't be able to do anything if they hid underground. How stupid. Forget it, it's time to end this. Chen Guang gave an order to the Colossus in his heart. Kill everyone here and get out of here. It was evident that the summoned creature couldn't understand a single word Chen Guang said, but it could understand its owner's impatience. It immediately responded by turning around and sprinting towards the hiding spot of the primordial star that Walter had transformed into. The world sand wrapped around his feet again, but this time it was broken off even faster. No one knew what the Colossus god used, but with every step it took, a six-pointed star formation would appear where its feet touched the ground. The Colossus god was getting closer and closer to Walter. The world sans figure gradually appeared, and he looked at the approaching giant in despair. He had already tried his best. However, the disparity between their strengths was too great, and he couldn't absorb the earth elemental power of this stone giant at all. Even if he used all his strength, it was all in vain. Even if he could occasionally obtain some power from the other party was an endless and bottomless pit. Everything was futile. Sher Shah looked up in despair. It was just a summoned creature, and it already made him feel so powerless. How strong was Raichin himself? The ultimate weapon, who was regarded as the last hope of the world-shattering holy tribe, actually felt no different from the others in despair. If he could, he wanted to fly up to the sky and stand in front of Raichin. He wanted to tell him what he had said to the others earlier. He wanted to tell him that he had been tricked too, that he was not a magician, and that this was all an illusion. We are all humans. Unfortunately, Obelisk's giant divine weapon did not give him the slightest chance to catch his breath. If Patriarch Ward died and the array was broken, in the next moment, none of the clansmen who had been attacking the Bluestone giant in vain from beginning to end would survive. This was so painful. He indeed didn't have deep feelings for these killers in the world-shattering holy tribe. But after all, many of them had grown up with him. Although he wasn't on good terms with many of them, they were still his partners. If he could, he really didn't want to lose a so-called partner, even if he didn't approve of these people's lifestyle and motives as killers. The world San knew that perhaps he shouldn't be so indecisive, but he had no choice. There's no other way. I can only fight like this, right? The world Sand clenched his teeth, and his whole body exploded again. But this time, he didn't attack the Colossus god like a moth flying into a flame. Instead, he turned into smoke and dust that scattered to the ground. The boundless yellow sand spread out in all directions with him as the center, and the sky seemed to be covered in a thick fog. In the next moment, the yellow sand fell to the ground again, and the ground began to undulate like the waves of the sea. Then, it gathered together again, and a giant that was even bigger than the Colossus god rose from the ground and blocked in front of the Colossus god. Chen Guang raised his eyebrows. Previously, you had been fighting against my Colossus god in the form of sand, and I couldn't find your body and crystal core even after several counterattacks. Now that you took the initiative to condense into a form, you're just seeking your own death. Facing this even bigger giant, the Colossus god didn't dodge or avoid. It waved its fist, and on the tip of the fist, a disc-shaped formation with a diameter of about 6 meters appeared, glowing with a golden glow. With a loud bang, the fist of the Colossus god hit the chest of the mud giant that was transformed by the world sand. Chen Guang, who had been playing tricks in the sky, suddenly flicked his finger. A ray of black light shot out from his fingertip and hit the head of the mud giant. After being hit by 2 attacks, the mud giant first stiffened, and then it suddenly disintegrated. The Colossus god pulled its hands to the sides and completely disintegrated. It lifted its leg and stepped through the disintegrated body of the mud giant. It didn't slow down and continued to charge towards where Walter was hiding. As for Chen Guang, he was looking at the light red crystal core floating in midair. Was this the ultimate weapon of the world-shattering Saint tribe? It was still so weak. Sigh, I thought it could cause me some trouble. However, he didn't gain nothing from this period of dawdling. At least, the punch that the Colossus god threw just now allowed him to understand another way to use the earth element. The magic formation on the fist of the Colossus god represented an extremely strong vibration. The moment the mud giant was hit, the vibration spread throughout its entire body and completely disintegrated. That was why the destroyer ability that he used during the last hit was able to succeed so easily. This ability was a bit like the Tremor fruit, Gura Gura no Mi, of the Whitebeard in One Piece. As expected, the elemental path was broad and profound. As long as one found the appropriate way to use it, one would be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort in battle. Damn! What the hell? He recovered so quickly. Suddenly, his pupils constricted. The originally dead world-shattering sand actually turned into a huge mud giant again and stood in front of the Colossus god. Looking at this obviously much weaker but still unyielding mud giant, Chen Guang felt a headache coming on. It wasn't that he couldn't deal with this guy. It was purely because in comparison, this so-called strongest warrior of the world-shattering saint tribe was more like an unkillable main character in novels and mangas. He had a firm belief. In order to protect his race, he didn't hesitate to use his last drop of blood. Even if he was smashed into pieces, he wouldn't hesitate. He was smashed again and again. Even though he knew that the difference in strength between the two of them was so great that willpower couldn't make up for the difference, he still wouldn't give up. Damn, this guy is the male lead. His villainous setting was becoming more and more ingrained under the brilliant image of the other party. This isn't logical. I'm clearly here to exterminate the bandits. I represent justice. Don't even think of shaking my willpower. You're all murderous killers. All of you have to die. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.